Chapter 1458 Training. Chapter 1458, Training. This. Jian Wushuang stood there as he watched Wushuang leave. He took a long time to calm himself down. Too strong. His close combat power is too strong. Jian Wushuang exclaimed. Really scary. He thought that he had fought with many experts ever since he started cultivation, and his close combat power wasn't that weak either. However, when he had fought with Wushuang, the match was dominated by one side from the outset. Wushuang was the one with the strongest close combat power among all experts that he had fought before. Such a terrifying close combat power. Why wasn't it emphasized in the information that Luo Meng gave? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. From Luo Meng's information, the introduction about Wushuang had described his strong close combat power, but it didn't say just how strong it was. However, from Jian Wushuang's point of view, Wushuang's close combat power couldn't just be described as extremely strong. It should be described as terrifying. Unless most of the experts in Sky Sword Prison are good at close combat. Jian Wushuang thought, oh, the people in Sky Sword Prison are always in a massacre. The massacre itself would increase one's close combat power tremendously, and the people here are imprisoned for very long. They'd figure out all the ways to increase their own power. They wouldn't even let the least bit pass. Close combat power is extremely useful during an actual fight. These experts definitely try their best to enhance their power. Naturally, all of them are good at it. Jian Wushuang understood. If it were to be a cultivator from the outside world, when they reached a bottleneck and found it difficult to break through, most of them would look for a chance and opportunity to improve. However, it was different in Sky Sword Prison. There wasn't any chance or opportunity, only merciless massacre. Hence, once their power reached a bottleneck, they could only figure out ways to improve things that they could improve on. It also led to the scenario where most of the experts in Sky Sword Prison were very good at close combat. Wushuang, who had fought with Jian Wushuang earlier, his close combat power wasn't at the top in Sky Sword Prison. In terms of power, Wushuang and I are about the same. However, he relied on his close combat power to suppress me. Of course, that was because I didn't perform any secret skills, nor use my soul power. Otherwise, he would be the one in a fix. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. His strongest fighting power was a flawless combination of sword principle and soul power. That was the true fighting power of one on Universe God ranking list. He merely used his sword principle, but he never used a soul attack. He had yet to even reveal his trump cards. The battle with Wushuang reminded me that my close combat power isn't strong. There are many experts in Sky Sword Prison, and most of them are good at close combat. With me wandering here, I could train my swordsmanship with the experts and simultaneously train close combat power. After all, there aren't many experts who would fight against me in the outside world. Plus, I have the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation with me. When I tried to comprehend it on my own blindly, the speed of improvement wasn't fast. But if I were to kill and train while I comprehend, the effect would be much better compared to before. Jian Wushuang then revealed a smile. In Sky Sword Prison he saw the opportunity to train. An opportunity that he had never had anywhere else. Very soon, Jian Wushuang continued to wander in Sky Sword Prison. With the advantage of soul power, he wasn't worried that he would encounter much danger. After all, if he ran into anyone above the second level, experts who he couldn't provoke, he would avoid them. He could only fight with experts in Sky Sword Prison from the third or fourth level. Jian Wushuang had no intention of fighting with a real god in the third level either. After all, even the weakest real god in the third level, although they never once comprehended the power of Heaven Wei, their unique skill and secret skill were at a terrifying level. Even when their divine power was restrained, they weren't easy targets. Jian Wushuang planned to only fight against these real gods after he became stronger or after he had created a real god unique skill. By then he would really achieve the result of training. The time flew past. When Jian Wushuang had first came to Sky Sword Prison, not many of them knew. However, as Jian Wushuang continued to wander and fought against experts in the third and fourth level, the experts in Sky Sword Prison gradually got to know his existence. After all, although Sky Sword Prison couldn't be connected to the outside world, the experts in the prison could still communicate with one another freely. The messages weren't hindered. After Jian Wushuang fought many times, he was listed in the third level by many people's experts' information collection. He was listed as intermediate in the third level. Of course, Jian Wushuang wasn't there to train his swordsmanship and close combat power. Hence, he hardly used his soul power. If he were to use his soul power, he would be on the top in the 3rd level. After the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang had stayed in Sky Sword Prison for 170 years. In the 170 years, Jian Wushuang fought with many Universe God experts of the 3rd and 4th level. There were victories and defeats. His swordsmanship and close combat power increased tremendously through the vigorous fighting, but it was a pity that he never once killed an expert in the 170 years. It wasn't because Jian Wushuang wasn't capable enough. It was because the experts in Sky Sword Prison had impressive survival skills. Even experts of the 4th level weren't easy targets to be killed. In Sky Sword Mountain, in the cave dwelling under the 9 lofty sword mountains, the middle-aged man sat. He was the owner of Sky Sword Mountain. He opened his eyes once again after 170 years. Then he glanced at the Sky Sword Prison which was under his control. He could see Jian Wushuang in Sky Sword Prison clearly. Ha! The owner of Sky Sword Mountain lifted the corners of his lips and revealed a smile in disdain. It has already been 170 years, this young man from lineage of Star had yet to kill even one Universe God in the 3rd heaven. Yuan said that this young man could kill 100 Universe Gods in 10,000 years and leave Sky Sword Prison with his own ability. From the look of things, that is just a joke. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain closed his eyes again. As he was at a high level, he was not bothered by the life or death of the prisoners in Sky Sword Prison. But then, it was because of Jian Wushuang that he would pay more attention to Sky Sword Prison. Otherwise, he wouldn't bother to take a look at Sky Sword Prison even once in a time span of tens of thousands of years. Chapter 1459, Universe God Long Xiu. Chapter 1459, Universe God Long Xiu. In Sky Sword Prison, in the depths of the forest, Jian Wushuang was sitting on a huge rock as he slowly opened his eyes. My soul strength has reached the limitation of a Universe God. There was a smile plastered on Jian Wushuang's face. For 170 years, when he was wandering in Sky Sword Prison, he was mostly fighting against experts to train his swordsmanship and close combat power. As for soul attacks, for 170 years he had almost never used any soul attack. However, what Jian Wushuang had never expected was that even when he didn't intentionally improve his soul strength, it had reached the limit of a Universe God's in the 170 years. At that level, it was already at the limit that a Universe God could reach. Any higher would be the level of real God. Reaching such state, Jian Wushuang's soul attack would be a notch higher compared to before. Plus, in the 170 years, his swordsmanship and close combat power would improve tremendously. His overall power was one notch higher compared to before. The current me, if my full power were to be put into full play, out of the experts in the 3rd level in Sky Sword Prison, I would be at the top. I am even close to the 2nd level. It's a pity that I never created any real God unique skills, and yet I can be compared favorably with the experts truly in the 2nd level, Jian Wushuang sighed. With the aid of the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation, his comprehension towards reincarnation doctrine improved tremendously too. However, to be truly evenly matched with the real gods who comprehended the power of Heaven Wei on the 2nd level, he still had a way to go. Continue to train. Jian Wushuang smiled and soon continued his journey in Sky Sword Prison again. During his journey, although he had never once killed any Universe God, he wasn't in a hurry. To him then, it was most important to continuously improve his power. As for the massacre, it wasn't time yet. In the cold void there was a breeze blowing. Against one's body, it made one's heart cold too. Jian Wushuang, in a crimson robe and carrying his sword on his back, moved forward slowly as his soul power swept across. Ha! Jian Wushuang was shocked as he noticed a figure that appeared within the coverage of his soul sensory. It was a blonde-haired, brawny man. Even though he was far away, Jian Wushuang could feel the raging tyrannical aura in his body. The blonde-haired brawny man reminded people of a ruthless lion. Universe God Long Xiu. There was a glimpse of light in Jian Wushuang's eyes and he immediately plunged towards where the blonde-haired brawny man was. In an instant, Jian Wushuang appeared before the blonde-haired brawny man. If I'm not mistaken, you're Jian Wushuang who just got into Sky Sword Prison, right? The blonde-haired brawny man glared coldly at Jian Wushuang. I am, Jian Wushuang nodded. I've been wandering around Sky Sword Prison for 170 years and I have fought many experts. However, it is my first time seeing you, Universe God Long Xiu. You knew my identity but you have the guts to appear before me so frankly. You are very courageous, the blonde-haired brawny man Universe God Long Xiu said. Jian Wushuang smiled at his reply. However, he knew clearly that Universe God Longxiu said so not because he was arrogant, but because he had the right to. Universe God Longxiu. Among the experts in Sky Sword Prison, he was on the 3rd level, but he was at the top of the 3rd level. Plus, Universe God Longxiu was widely recognized as the most annoying one by all Universe Gods in Sky Sword Prison. He cultivated an impressive secret skill in martial art motion. His martial art motion was known as the first in Sky Sword Prison. Secondly, he was also good at his travel speed. When he runs at full speed, even a real god couldn't catch up with him. As for his divine body, he too was strong. In combination with defense secret skill and defense treasure, many real gods' defense power couldn't be evenly matched with his. A universe god who possessed terrifying martial art motion, fast in speed, strong divine body and almost no weakness. He could move around Sky Sword Prison as freely as he wished. There was a rumor that he had once met one of the kings of the 1st level in Sky Sword Prison. The king took action against him but didn't manage to kill him. One should know that the strongest in Sky Sword Prison was the 4 kings. Even the kings couldn't take care of him. Who else could kill him? Because so, although Universe God Longxiu was only on the top of the 3rd level, he could move around Sky Sword Prison freely. Many experts on the 2nd level who met him would opt to detour without hesitation. But then Jian Wushuang took the initiative when he found Universe God Longxiu. That was why Universe God Longxiu had complimented his courage. Jian Wushuang, you're just a newbie. You didn't find a place to hide but wandered around to fight against experts. It seems that you were trying to train yourself using the experts in Sky Sword Prison. Now you took the initiative to look for me. What? You want me to be one of your whetstones too? Universe God Longxiu glared at Jian Wushuang. Haha, you live up to your reputation, Universe God Longxiu. You could tell the purpose of my visit at first glance. However, the purpose of my visit is not only treating you as one of the whetstones but also, if possible, I'd like to take your head. Jian Wushuang smiled and said. Universe God Longxiu's face grew solemn. In Sky Sword Prison, only he would ask for trouble with the others and take their heads. Since when there was someone who would boast shamelessly that they wanted to take his head instead? You're asking for death. Universe God Longxiu took action directly as he bellowed. He turned into a beast and a terrifying, raging aura spread. Wow. A simple charge and there were 9 shadows that plunged from the void. The 9 shadows looked so surreal. This martial art motion. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows as a shrill light flashed in his eyes. Behind. Jian Wushuang's soul power instantly locked onto his target, Universe God Longxiu. He turned instantly and wielded Blood Mountain Sword smoothly. The soaring murderous intention of Universe God Longxiu led to flowing golden light from his body. Both his hands turned into claws. Wow, wow, wow. In the void there were suddenly 3 golden claw marks. The 3 claw marks tore the void. Down, down, down. The claw mark collided with Blood Mountain Sword and the impact exploded. Universe God Longxiu went illusionary and appeared in the 9 shadows again while his real body appeared next to Jian Wushuang. His right index fingers were engulfed with intense golden light. The golden light was like a golden long spear aiming at Jian Wushuang's skull. Jian Wushuang shook and his arms moved in a creepy manner. The sword slashed and Universe God Longxiu retreated. Universe God Longxiu harumphed coldly. Suddenly, there were shadows in the surrounding void again. The shadows hemmed Jian Wushuang in and they launched attacks at him simultaneously. Chapter 1460, The Only Weakness. Chapter 1460, The Only Weakness. There were a total of 9 illusionary figures that were hemmed in. They launched an attack simultaneously, waving their claws, landing heavy punches or giving out brilliant lights from the tip of their fingers. Every single hit was real while Universe God Longxiu's body moved swiftly among the illusionary figures and appeared in every corner, surrounding Jian Wushuang to perform a vital hit. Even Jian Wushuang found it hard to catch up with Universe God Longxiu's martial art movements in terms of speed. He deserves to be acknowledged as the one with top martial art movement Sky Sword Prison. That's so terrifying. Jian Wushuang exclaimed, but he was not anxious at all. Although he couldn't follow Universe God Longxiu's martial art movements, his soul power had locked Universe God Longxiu long ago. Regardless of how creepy Universe God Longxiu's martial art movement was, Jian Wushuang could respond in time and also could withstand Universe God Longxiu's attacks. In the void, Jian Wushuang put his close combat power into full play. In collaboration with his swordsmanship and the power of reincarnation, He fought against Universe God Long Xiu face to face. Although he was playing defense, he never once looked in a fix. Bang. A loud thud and the 9 illusionary figures surrounding Jian Wushuang suddenly dispersed and Universe God Long Xiu's real body appeared somewhere far away. Jian Wushuang, the experts in Sky Sword Prison categorize you as an intermediate standard in the 3rd level. From what I can see, your power could be at the top of the 3rd level and you could totally see through my martial art movement. That's rather impressive. Universe God Long Xiu said. He felt rather complicated at the bottom of his heart. He was fast and his divine body was extremely strong. His martial art movement was widely recognized as the top in Sky Sword Prison. However, his power was actually not too strong. He had only created an ordinary real god unique skill and he had never once comprehended the power of Heaven Wei. His true power was merely at the intermediate standard of the 3rd level, but because of his terrifying martial art movement, he was listed at the top of the 3rd level. But then, Jian Wushuang saw through his martial art movement, so it was rather difficult for him to put his greatest advantage to full play. He naturally couldn't do anything about Jian Wushuang. It's a pity that I've never once understood the power of Heaven Wei. Otherwise, I would be confident of killing him. Universe God Long Xiu took a glance at Jian Wushuang and immediately shook his head. Jian Wushuang, you're lucky. See you again soon. Then Universe God Long Xiu moved and he retreated to the back. However, he had just started. Virum. A boundless blazing quicksand erupted. Suddenly, it covered the entire universe and engulfed Universe God Long Xiu within. When the blazing quicksand took effect, Universe God Long Xiu's speed was affected. He started frowning. Jian Wushuang, what are you trying to do? Universe God Long Xiu roared. What am I trying to do? I told you earlier. If it's possible, I'd like to take your head down. You thought I was kidding? Jian Wushuang smiled and moved forward to him. Kill me? Ah, that's funny. The entire Sky Sword Prison besides Heartless King, who was one of the 4 kings, who else could kill me? Jian Wushuang, I suggest that you stop wasting time. Universe God Long Xiu sneered at him. Only the Heartless King could kill you? I'm sorry. From today onwards there will be a second person. This person will be me. Jian Wushuang smirked. Universe God Long Xiu's face grew dim. Universe God Long Xiu, the reason you are afraid of Heartless King is that the Heartless King is good at consciousness attacks, right? Jian Wushuang's laughter continued to spread. He had read information about the 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison. Heartless King was one of them and also the only real god who was good at consciousness attacks in the entire Sky Sword Prison. Universe God Long Xiu was extremely fast and known to be the top in martial art movement. His divine body was extremely strong too. In terms of material attack, he had almost no weaknesses. Among the 4 kings, the other 3 were good at material attacks. Hence they couldn't kill him. However, Universe God Long Xiu's consciousness wasn't strong. Compared to his divine body, speed and martial art movement, his consciousness was his only weakness. Universe God Long Xiu, try to take this. Jian Wushuang's voice was heard again. At that very moment, there was a strong crimson light from his eyes. The crimson light was like a crimson sun, extremely harsh to the eyes. 18 Azura Hell descended directly. As Jian Wushuang's soul strength reached the limit of a universe god, the technique was even scarier than before. Although Universe God Long Xiu was back facing Jian Wushuang, as long as he was shined on by the crimson light, he would fall into a phantasmagoria. No. Universe God Long Xiu's expression grew grave. He who was trapped in dreamland immediately went insane and started struggling. Break. Break. Universe God Long Xiu bellowed in madness and his consciousness was quivering. Actually, Universe God Long Xiu's consciousness wasn't weak. Among peak universe gods in the 3rd heaven it could be considered as impressive and he was only 1 step away from the limit of a universe god. However, such a level of consciousness was obviously insufficient before Jian Wushuang. Rumble. Universe God Long Xiu was raging with anger and his heart was extremely cold. Along with the bellow he finally shook off from 18 Azura Hell. Before he could be surprised he immediately saw a dark light before him. The dark light was actually a black long spear that gave out mysterious strength. The long spear appeared less than 1 meter away from her. At such a close distance, he wouldn't be able to dodge in time even if his martial art movement was amazing. He could only rely on his strong defense power to endure the black long spear. Clang. The black long spear hit his armor which was transformed from the robe that he was wearing and made a metal crashing sound but didn't pierce it. Just as Universe God Long Xiu wanted to let out a breath of relief, he realized the terrifying power from the long spear had pierced through his sea of consciousness. It was an inextinguishable light that Jian Wushuang performed with his all. The inextinguishable light, with the support of the spear, was like a storm. It suddenly tore Universe God Long Xiu's consciousness into pieces. Universe God Long Xiu's consciousness slowly dispersed. Before he died, he seemed to look in disbelief and be unwilling to admit defeat. He never thought that when the other three kings in Sky Sword Prison couldn't kill him, he would die at the hands of a universe god. Besides, there was a look of relief in Universe God Long Xiu's eyes. Jian Wushuang stood there in silence as he watched Universe God Long Xiu fall. His eyes were cold. Being imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, you and I have no choice but to seek our way out with our all. Before I kill you, I want to say that you have killed many other experts, so you can't blame me, Jian Wushuang muttered. Then he appeared before Universe God Long Xiu's dead body. He took away Universe God Long Xiu's Chenkuan ring and the treasures on him. Then he immediately took a look inside the Chenkuan ring. Very soon Jian Wushuang was beaming with joy. Found it. Universe God Long Xiu's secret skill of martial art movement, Flowing Light Phantom. Chapter 1461 Flowing Light Shadow. Chapter 1461 Flowing Light Shadow. Jian Wushuang wandered in Sky Sword Prison for 170 years. Although he exchanged blows with a large number of experts, he was mostly using the experts to train his swordsmanship and close combat power. He had never thought of putting his opponent to death. He thought it wasn't time for him to massacre yet. However, looking at Universe God Long Xiu that day, he took action without hesitation and gave full play to many trump cards to kill Universe God Long Xiu. He only had one goal in his head, which was to get the secret skill in his hands then. Universe God Long Xiu, widely recognized as the first in Sky Sword Prison. His martial art motion was really terrifying. If my soul power couldn't target where his real body was, he could totally use that technique to suppress me and torture me, Jian Wushuang complimented in silence. Universe God Long Xiu, he was only at the standard of the 3rd level, but he was listed at the top of the 3rd level because of his martial art motion. Jian Wushuang, of course, cast greedy eyes over Universe God Long Xiu's martial art motion. Then he killed Universe God Long Xiu and obtained the secret skill of martial art motion from the latter, as expected. Flowing Light Phantom is a secret skill of martial art motion where one turned into shadow in the void and went shuttling to and fro at terrifying speed. There is a total of 5 stages. The first stage, one could cast 3 shadows at once. The second stage, 9 shadows. The third stage, 18 shadows. The fourth stage, 99 shadows. At the 5th stage, also the highest stage with full power, one could form up to billions of shadows in the void simultaneously. Looking at the description of Flowing Light Phantom, Jian Wushuang was astonished. He knew the secret skill of martial art motion that Universe God Long Xiu possessed was impressive, but he didn't know it was that powerful. Universe God Long Xiu depended on this secret skill and got recognized as the top martial art motion in Sky Sword Prison. But in actual fact, he only cultivated to the 2nd stage of the secret skill, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. The 2nd stage of secret skill, which was to cast 9 shadows at once. Previously, when he was fighting a ferocious battle with Universe God Long Xiu, he had only cast 9 shadows. If the 2nd stage of secret skill is so impressive, just how scary will the following 3rd, 4th and the highest 5th stage be? Jian Wushuang exclaimed. However, he also knew that although the secret skill was impressive, it wouldn't be easy to cultivate. If it was merely the 1st and 2nd stage, it would be easy. He only needed constant practice and continuous mastery to become better. However, there was a rather high prerequisite for the 3rd stage onwards. The secret skill of Flowing Light Phantom was a martial art motion that focused on space. From the 3rd stage onwards, it would need to rely on the power of spacetime. Hence, to reach the 3rd stage to perform 18 shadows, he had to comprehend one of the Supreme 4 doctrines, the spacetime doctrine. It was also the reason why Universe God Long Xiu couldn't reach the 3rd stage of the secret skill. After all, he had never once understood spacetime doctrine. The secret skill of martial art doctrine isn't ordinary. If I were to successfully cultivate it, I only need to reach the 1st or the 2nd stage and it had increased my power tremendously. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists. Then he immediately found a secluded area and started studying the secret skill of Flowing Light Phantom. Jian Wushuang was a person of quick comprehension, and the secret skill of flowing light phantom only had a high prerequisite for the third stage onwards. As for the first and second stage, it was rather easy, especially the first stage. 30 years' time passed in the blink of an eye. In the 30 years, Jian Wushuang reached the first stage of the secret skill of flowing light phantom through continuous study and practice. In an empty void, Jian Wushuang stood there. His figure moved suddenly and the three shadows were casted simultaneously. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang instantly appeared in the void 10 miles away and immediately plunged again. Swoosh! 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 Along with Jian Wushuang's figure moving, the three shadows that he cast continued to plunge as well. The speed was so fast and creepily flexible. No one could tell which was real and which was fake. Soon Jian Wushuang's figure finally stopped and the three shadows vanished into thin air. This martial art motion is pretty sick. There was a glimpse of light in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Not only did his traveling speed increase terrifyingly and become more flexible after mastering the martial art motion, he also caused his opponent to be deluded by the three shadows. In the massacre, it would put him at advantage. Although it is only the first stage, it has already increased my overall power tremendously, especially in terms of close combat skills. As for the second stage, it took me a total of 30 years to study for the first stage, and the second stage will be extremely difficult. I shouldn't dream of mastering it without a few hundred or a few thousand years. 1,000 years. It isn't short. I can only train while I slowly master it. Jian Wushuang smiled, then he continued his journey of wandering in Sky Sword Prison. Before that, when Jian Wushuang was wandering, he would rely on his soul power to avoid some experts. For example, the real gods on the third level. When Jian Wushuang crossed paths with them, he would normally detour to avoid them. But then, Jian Wushuang was dying to fight against the real gods in the third level. In a barren, dark land, there was a purple palace on the mountainside. Swoosh! A young man in a crimson robe carrying a sword on his back appeared before the purple palace directly. Real God Pingyu. A bright, clear voice was heard from Jian Wushuang's mouth. It traveled and naturally spread into the purple palace. Very quickly, a middle-aged man walked out from the purple place barefoot. You are Jian Wushuang? The middle-aged man, Real God Pingyu, looked at Jian Wushuang. You look like you want to fight a battle with me? Jian Wushuang smiled. I have to thank Sky Sword Prison. If I were to be outside, I wouldn't dare to fight against any real god, but now. Real God Pingyu, you're the first real god that I will fight against since I started cultivating. I'd like to see just how strong a real god expert is. If so, let's fight. Real God Pingyu didn't waste time and took out a black rod. The two of them started exchanging blows very quickly. The moment they started the fight, Jian Wushuang let his power to full play directly. Along with his close combat skill that he had obtained in the recent years, as well as the secret skill of flowing light phantom, his swordsmanship was performed with his all too. However, he didn't use his soul power still. The battle was extremely ferocious. Under the situation where his soul power was used, although Jian Wushuang was at an advantage with his comprehension of power of reincarnation, his unique skill was weaker after all. Although Real God Pingyu had never once comprehended power of Heaven Wei, he had created multiple Real God unique skills. Some were even close to intermediate level of Real God unique skill. Relying on his fierce unique skill, Real God Pingyu could still suppress Jian Wushuang, but he couldn't kill him. Chapter 1462, Succeeding in Unique Skill. Chapter 1462, Succeeding in Unique Skill. Real God Pingyu was the first real god that Jian Wushuang had fought against. Jian Wushuang felt pressured when he was fighting with Real God Pingyu. Although it was said that real gods in the Sky Sword Prison were restrained and their divine power was capped at the level of a peak universe god in the third heaven, the real gods' divine bodies, including their unique skills and secret skills that they possessed, wouldn't be restrained. For instance, as a real god, he had to create a unique skill of real god level. It was obviously much easier compared to a universe god. Even if he was the weakest kind of real god, the real god unique skill that he had created would be very impressive too. Then Jian Wushuang continued to wander through Sky Sword Prison. He relied on his soul power and found experts who were at the top of the third level and fought against them, including the real gods of the third level. Jian Wushuang didn't intend to let them off the hook. As long as he came across them, he would have a battle with them. Exchanging blows with real gods was very beneficial to Jian Wushuang compared to fighting against the universe gods in the third level. As for the second level, Jian Wushuang had yet to have the guts to challenge the experts of the second level. Their differences were too vast. In all the vigorous battles they fought, Jian Wushuang was constantly improving and perfecting his swordsmanship. He was also perfecting his unique skill. He had already created 2 rank 3 strongest unique skill. Then he naturally wanted to create a real god unique skill, but real god unique skill. Jian Wushuang felt that he was not far from it. Sky Sword Mountain, underneath the 9 sword mountains in the cave dwelling. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain, who was sitting there, already opened his eyes. His sight looked through the void and he watched everything in Sky Sword Prison. He had been eyeing Sky Sword Prison for a few years. The young man from lineage of Star. He didn't hunt those prisoners who are weak and categorized in the 4th level. On the contrary, he constantly looks for experts at the top of the 3rd level, including real gods, to train his swordsmanship. He treated Sky Sword Prison as his training field. He's quite interesting. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain muttered and quickly closed his eyes. In Sky Sword Prison the time flew past. To the prisoners in prison, time was cheap. Most of them were imprisoned in the prison for many years and they had lost all concept of time. In a spacious, barren land, Jian Wushuang held his sword with one hand and stood right in the middle. In the surrounding land there were strokes of sword marks. The surface of the sword marks were extremely smooth and it was obviously due to extremely sharp swordsmanship. Virum? Boundless sword intention suddenly soared from Jian Wushuang's body as Jian Wushuang's eyes let out terrifying light. He held Blood Mountain sword with both his hands and it shook slightly. There was boundless crimson light on the surface of the blade. The boundless crimson light formed a huge crimson river while Jian Wushuang was the focus of the crimson river. Go! Jian Wushuang released the tension and the force that had accumulated in Blood Mountain sword to the extreme suddenly erupted. Wow! So fast that there was almost crimson lightning in the air. Ridiculously fast. The crimson sword light pierced through the void and left an enormous amount of crimson light. It took very long to disperse. The crimson light hit the ground before them and the ground instantly had a huge sword mark that covered an expanse of a few hundred miles. The sword mark was as smooth as ice and without any bumpiness. On the surface of the mark, there was a faint crimson light and terrifying sword intention. Done. Jian Wushuang stood in the void and revealed a joyful expression. Ever since he had been imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, it had been a total of 1300 years. In the 1300 years, he had been fighting ferocious battles with the prisoners in Sky Sword Prison. In order to train his swordsmanship, he had been trying to figure out ways to create a real god-unique skill. Then, through the battles with the experts, including real gods, and in collaboration of his comprehension of the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation, he had finally created his own real god-unique skill. Jian Wushuang named it Crimson Light. Although it took a total of 1300 years, it was considered a miracle to be able to create this move. Jian Wushuang clenched his fist as he grew hot with emotions. His comprehension power was extremely high. If he were to be a universe god in the 3rd heaven, training in Sky Sword Prison with the aid of the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation, it would have been rather easy to create a real god-unique skill. He wouldn't have wasted so much time. However, he was just a universe god in the 2nd heaven after all. A universe god in the 2nd heaven who could create a rank 3 strongest unique skill was already considered the monster of monsters. As for a unique skill of the real god level, under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be something a universe god in the 2nd heaven could achieve. But Jian Wushuang had. It was really a miracle. At least Jian Wushuang had yet to hear of any universe gods in the 2nd heaven who had created a real god-unique skill in eternal chaotic world. For instance, Ling Baifei, who was the top among all universe god in the 2nd heaven from lineage of Star, had only created a rank 3 strongest unique skill. To be able to create a real god-unique skill is already considered a miracle. However, at my stage as universe god in the 2nd heaven, I'm afraid it will be impossible if I want to create another, stronger unique skill. I can only create a unique skill of the same level at most, Jian Wushuang sighed. As a cultivator, regardless of his level, there would be a limit that each level would reach. It was also inevitable for an inverse cultivator. Jian Wushuang was a universe god in the 2nd heaven. His limitation in unique skill would be creating a real god-unique skill. It would be impossible if he wanted to increase its level. Unless he passed through his inverse god's test in the 3rd heaven and became a universe god in the 3rd heaven, then his unique skill could be leveled up further. I've created real God-unique skill and my comprehension of reincarnation doctrine has improved tremendously in the 1300 years. The first 3 images in the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation, I already fully comprehended the first and comprehended more than half of the second. As for close-body combat, I have also improved a lot. The current me is qualified to squeeze into the second level in terms of my power. Jian Wushuang smiled. Of the 4 levels of experts in Sky Sword Prison, there were 28 in the second level. Among the 28 of them, there were 26 of them who had already comprehended a slight bit of the power of Heaven Wei, while the other 2 were universe gods who were highly talented. But then, Jian Wushuang was confident that he should be able to squeeze into the second level. As for his level among the 28 experts in the second level, he had to fight against the experts in the second level before he could find out. Jian Wushuang quickly moved within Sky Sword Prison and started looking for experts of the second level. Chapter 1463 Invitation. Chapter 1463 Invitation. In the void filled with pungent blood scent, Jian Wushuang appeared on the peak of a mountain. He was overlooking a vast territory before him. The territory was made of billowing hills that formed into a huge mountain range. Here, this should be Darkness Mountain. Darkness Mountain is said to be the territory of one of the 4 kings, Blood Emperor. In Darkness Mountain there are many experts. There should be some experts on the second level too. I wonder when I'll meet them. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and then he entered Darkness Mountain to wander around. Sky Sword Prison wasn't that big. It was at most the size of an ordinary realm in the outside world. As the overlord of the prison, the 4 kings had their territories each in Sky Sword Prison and they had many experts under their command. The Darkness Mountain was the territory of one of the 4 kings, Blood Emperor. Jian Wushuang was there to have a chance to fight against experts on the second level. Very soon Jian Wushuang came across a real god in Darkness Mountain and they started fighting. In the continuous hills, there was a pinnacle that seemed to be tainted with fresh blood. On the peak of the pinnacle there was a crimson castle. The crimson castle was where the Blood Emperor resided. In a private room there was a person in a crimson long robe. He had crimson long hair and even his skin was dimly red. He looked just like an elderly with blade-like eyebrows who was showering in crimson sea. The elderly with blade-like eyebrows was Blood Emperor, one of the top experts in Sky Sword Prison. Blood Emperor meditated in seclusion in the secret room all year round. He hardly revealed himself. But then Blood Emperor's eyes suddenly shot open. Such senses. Oh, who is it? Who came to Darkness Mountain? As Blood Emperor muttered, in the depth of his crimson red eyes, there was light shimmering. His body quivered slightly. Suddenly, Blood Emperor's figure became vague and suddenly appeared in the middle of the hall in the Crimson Castle. Master. A lady in green stood before Blood Emperor politely. Zishuang, while I meditated in seclusion, did anything major happen in Sky Sword Prison? Blood Emperor asked coldly. All these years Sky Sword Prison has been the same as before. Nothing major happened, the lady in green answered. How about the newcomers? I've been meditating in seclusion for 50,000 years. There should be many newcomers imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, right? Blood Emperor asked. During the 50,000 years when Master was meditating in seclusion, from what I know, there's been a total of 385 newcomers. 90% of these newcomers are dead and only a portion of them survived in Sky Sword Prison, the lady in green reported. Among the newcomers, is there anyone who is wandering in Darkness Mountain? Blood Emperor continued to ask. There's one, the lady in green nodded. His name is Jian Wushuang. He's a universe god. He's in Sky Sword Prison for 1,300 over years. During his time here he has fought with many experts in Sky Sword Prison and he has improved tremendously. A few days ago he came to Darkness Mountain and fought with a real god under your command in Darkness Mountain. However, as Jian Wushuang fought with the real god in order to train his swordsmanship but didn't kill anyone, I let him continue to wander in Darkness Mountain as he wished. As expected, there is a newcomer in Darkness Mountain, Jian Wushuang. Blood Emperor smiled and sighed. He then commanded, send a message to the real gods, universe gods in Darkness Mountain. If they see Jian Wushuang, tell them to send a message on my behalf. Tell him that I, Blood Emperor, would like to invite him to pay a visit at the castle. Yes, the lady in green nodded and quickly carried out her task. The entire hall only had Blood Emperor left. Then Blood Emperor squinted his eyes. Jian Wushuang. I wonder if he's from my tribe. If he is, I'll let him off. But if he isn't? A sharp, shrill shot out from Blood Emperor's eyes. In Darkness Mountain. Bang, bang, bang. A loud thud was heard across the sky. A brawny man in black armor and a black triangle helmet and holding a black long spear had a soaring rage. He continuously stabbed with his long spear, and every single stab was like a raging flood dragon. It pierced through the void and aimed at Jian Wushuang's head. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang became three shadows and flickered in the void at high speed. He dodged the hit of the brawny man easily, then he swung out Blood Mountain sword at lightning speed too. Every sword light was extremely eye-catching. In terms of power, both of them were obviously not much different. They had been fighting ferociously for an hour in the void, but the match was too close to call. Finally, the two of them calmed down. In Sky Sword Prison, there are only two universe gods who are qualified to be on the second level. They are imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison long ago, and they experienced countless massacres and training to be where they are today. Then, there's another universe god standing on the second level. Jian Wushuang, you've only been in Sky Sword Prison for 1,300 years and you reached the standard of the second level. That's rather impressive. If you were to continue to improve at such speed, I'm afraid that there might be a chance for us to give birth to the fifth king in Sky Sword Prison in no time. The brawny man in black armor spoke in a loud and bright voice. It reverberated in the universe. The fifth king? Jian Wushuang chuckled. Real god Heishio must be joking. That I could improve to where I am now as a universe god is already lucky enough. To become the fifth king, there might be a slight possibility after I break through and become real god. The brawny man, real god Heishio, raised his eyebrows but didn't deny it. Jian Wushuang, I have just received a piece of news from the owner of Darkness Mountain, Blood Emperor. Real god Heishio said, Blood Emperor want us to pass you a message on his behalf if we see you. He would like to invite you to his Crimson Castle. Oh. Jian Wushuang was shocked. One of the four kings, Blood Emperor, had invited him over. Real god Heishio, do you know what is Blood Emperor looking for me for? Jian Wushuang asked. I don't know. Real god Heishio shook his head. I'm only responsible for passing the message on. As for Real god Heishio's purpose, I'm not sure. It's up to you whether you go to the Crimson Castle. Real god Heishio said and disappeared before Jian Wushuang in the next moment. Jian Wushuang stood in the void in confusion. I have never come across Blood Emperor at all. Why would he invite me over out of nowhere? Chapter 1464 Jian Wushuang's Plan. Chapter 1464, Jian Wushuang's Plan. One of the four kings in Sky Sword Prison, Blood Emperor, the top expert on the first level, his comprehension of Heaven Way had reached the first level of Doctrine Palace. Such a top expert wasn't someone Jian Wushuang could match evenly. He naturally stayed at a respectful distance. He had been wandering in Sky Sword Prison for 1,300 years, but he had never come across any one of the four kings. The reason why he would wander in Darkness Mountain was that he wanted to look for a few real gods at the second level to fight to train himself. But Jian Wushuang had never thought that Blood Emperor would invite him personally. What did he want? In Sky Sword Prison, it is very dangerous. People continuously kill in order to leave this place alive. Real gods like Real God Heishio were nice to me merely because they couldn't kill me. If any universe gods on the fourth or the third level who were weaker were to appear before Real God Heishio, he would have taken action directly to kill him. Blood Emperor has the ability to kill me. Hence, regardless of what his purpose is, it's impossible that I run to his Crimson Castle. It is no different from asking to die. Jian Wushuang muttered. He had already made up his mind. He didn't plan to bother Blood Emperor at all. He would stay as far away as he could. Unless he was confident with his power and thought he could deal with Blood Emperor frankly, he would then agree to see Blood Emperor. Jian Wushuang continued to wander. In the Crimson Castle that Blood Emperor was in. Master Real God Heishio replied. He already passed your message to Jian Wushuang on your behalf. However, Jian Wushuang doesn't look like he intends to make a trip to Crimson Castle. The lady in green stood before Blood Emperor politely. Doesn't intend to make a trip? Blood Emperor raised his blade-like eyebrows. According to the replies of experts in Darkness Mountain, Jian Wushuang doesn't intend to visit Crimson Castle. He was still fighting with the experts in the region to train himself, the lady in green reported. The young man is quite smart. But, if he doesn't come to Crimson Castle, can I take the initiative to find him in person? Blood Emperor smiled coldly. Tell the people in Darkness Mountain to keep an eye on Jian Wushuang and send his current location to me. Yes, the lady in green replied. Then Blood Emperor's body turned vague and left Crimson Castle. He then plunged towards where Jian Wushuang was. On a barren land. Rumble. A huge axe shadow appeared out of nowhere and pressed over mightily. Jian Wushuang was immediately tough against it with Crimson Light technique. In the end he was forced to retreat by fierce strength. Haha, you live up to your name, real god Jiufu. You're really impressive. I learned my lesson today. Farewell. Jian Wushuang laughed and then turned to leave. Real god Jiufu didn't intend to stop Jian Wushuang too. He couldn't kill Jian Wushuang after all. In the void, Jian Wushuang plunged as he recalled the battle with real god Jiufu earlier. The expert standing at the second level was really strong. Although I created a real god unique skill and I am qualified to step foot on the second level, I belong to the bottom among all experts on the second level, Jian Wushuang muttered. However, with years of fighting experience, I have constantly improved in grasping flowing light phantom. It shouldn't be long until I reach the second stage. By then, I should be able to cast 9 shadows and my power will increase tremendously, especially in terms of speed. Until then, I should be able to start my hunting plan. Jian Wushuang stayed in Sky Sword Prison for 1,300 years. He had had his hunting plan long ago. After all, it was impossible for him to stay in Sky Sword Prison. He had to figure a way out. As he wanted to leave, he had to hunt down the experts. However, once he had revealed his power, especially his soul attack, he might cause a panic attack among experts in Sky Sword Prison. A consciousness attack was too creepy and hard to avoid. An expert who was good at consciousness attacks would be far scarier than other cultivators of another level. Most of the experts in Sky Sword Prison were of the 3rd or the 4th level. Their defense power was extremely strong. However, their defense powers were mostly against physical attacks. Once they come across consciousness attacks, they would be the same as Universe God Long Xiu that Jian Wushuang killed before. Universe God Long Xiu survived under the king's attack, but he was killed by Jian Wushuang. How would other people compare? Hence, if the news about Jian Wushuang was that he was good at consciousness attacks and his consciousness attack was ferocious, and one without the consciousness strength of a real god couldn't resist if it were to spread, the universe gods in Sky Sword Prison would definitely keep their distance from Jian Wushuang. Everyone would keep a respectful distance and run away when they saw him. Who else would be willing to be a whetstone and fight against him? Plus, there might be some universe gods who joined forces to kill him, to remove him as a threat. Just like one of the 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison, Heartless King. She was a real god who was good at consciousness attacks and extremely strong. Back when she first got imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, she killed many real gods and universe gods with consciousness attacks. But in the end, the experts of Sky Sword Prison noticed her existence and kept their distance. Whenever they noticed that she was nearby, they would run away. Hence, Heartless King could do nothing about it. Over the years, Heartless King was far from achieving the requirement to leave Sky Sword Prison. Heartless King was too powerful, too aloof. But I'm different. I am just a universe god and the experts in Sky Sword Prison wouldn't be bothered with me. Compared to Heartless King who was also good at consciousness attacks like me, I am at a major advantage because my consciousness has already transformed into soul power. Once my soul power is launched, I can easily find experts who are hiding and kill them. Heartless King wouldn't be able to do that, Jian Wushuang sneered. Hence, compared to Heartless King, his advantage over the experts on the 3rd and 4th level was much bigger. But because of that, Jian Wushuang never used his soul power since the beginning. He had been training his swordsmanship and close combat power to increase his overall power. Until he had absolute power to rely on, he would use soul power to conduct the massacres. It was an opportunity that Jian Wushuang tailored when he had entered Sky Sword Prison. Everything was going according to plan. Then he was waiting for his mastery of flowing light phantom to improve to the 2nd stage and cast 9 shadows. Then he would begin the massacre. Chapter 1465, Blood Emperor is here. Chapter 1465, Blood Emperor is here. Jian Wushuang's plan was great. However, something unexpected always happens. Jian Wushuang suddenly stopped in the void and his face grew solemn. He could clearly feel the figure in a crimson robe with crimson hair within the coverage of his soul power. This look and this aura. It's Blood Emperor. Jian Wushuang immediately realized the person's identity. In the void near Jian Wushuang, Blood Emperor had already noticed Jian Wushuang's existence too. Haha, found you. With a slight smile, Blood Emperor's figure plunged towards Jian Wushuang. Blood Emperor entrusted his people to pass me a message to invite me to his Crimson Castle, but I didn't go. Now he has taken the initiative to look for me? Jian Wushuang's heart clenched. When he noticed Blood Emperor was plunging towards him, he didn't hesitate but started running away at his top speed. Jian Wushuang, I didn't say that I'm going to kill you. Why are you running away? In the void, Blood Emperor's voice spread as he stopped. Jian Wushuang then stopped running, but he maintained a big distance from Blood Emperor. Although there are many experts in Sky Sword Prison, I reckon there shouldn't be many that wouldn't run away when they see Blood Emperor. I, Jian Wushuang, don't have the guts to deal with Blood Emperor in person, Jian Wushuang said, and his voice spread from afar via divine power into Blood Emperor's ears. I told the others to invite you over on my behalf, but you never came to Crimson Castle as a guest. Naturally, I could only come to find you in person. Blood Emperor smiled faintly. I wonder what Blood Emperor would like me to do for him? Jian Wushuang asked. He was curious too. Why did Blood Emperor look for him? Actually, I looked for you because I needed your help, Blood Emperor said. I have been studying a formation for quite some time. However, the setup of the formation required a gemstone called Tiansha Gem. I don't have many of them, so I wanted to borrow a few from you. Tiansha Gem? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. What's a Tiansha Gem? Where did Blood Emperor hear that I have Tiansha Gems? You don't have Tiansha Gems? Blood Emperor frowned. I really don't, and I've never heard of Tiansha Gems, Jian Wushuang said straightforwardly. You've never even heard of them? Blood Emperor squinted his eyes as he thought to himself. He doesn't even know about the Tiansha Gems. In other words, it's impossible that he belongs to my tribe even though he carried a treasure of my tribe. Blood Emperor's gaze turned cold and he instantly lifted his head again. He smiled and said, Jian Wushuang, you should have Tiansha Gem, but you never knew. I have a Tiansha Gem with me, take a look. Blood Emperor took out a crimson gem from Chen Kuan ring and pretended to show Jian Wushuang as his figure moved towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, hurry up and run. King of Venomous Worm's voice suddenly heard in Jian Wushuang's head. Jian Wushuang's face grew grim and turned around immediately to run without hesitation. Just as he turned around, rumble, there was a soaring murderous intention which erupted from Blood Emperor. Blood Emperor was originally moving closer to him. But then he was traveling at a terrifying speed too, like a crimson, flowing light that flew through the void towards Jian Wushuang. Blood Emperor said he didn't want to kill me? Jian Wushuang's facial expression changed. His soul power could sense that the distance between himself and Blood Emperor was getting smaller at a terrifying speed. At that rate, he reckoned that Blood Emperor would catch up to him in a short time. Secret skill of dragon blood. Jian Wushuang bellowed, and the divine power in his body suddenly became a blazing inferno and churned at a terrifying speed. Burning with the aid of divine power, Jian Wushuang's speed instantly increased by a few hundred times. The distance between Blood Emperor and Jian Wushuang wasn't far, but it instantly widened the gap at extremely terrifying speed. What? Looking at the scene, Blood Emperor's face changed and he immediately sent a message to all the experts under his command within Darkness Mountain. He wanted them to stop Jian Wushuang from escaping. There were quite a number of experts under Blood Emperor's control, and most of them had gathered at Darkness Mountain. The moment they received his order, they carried it out. However, Blood Emperor belittled Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's soul power spread. Hence, whenever there were to be any experts that appeared around him, he could notice them at the very moment. Then he would dodge. The experts in Darkness Mountain that wanted to stop him couldn't even see where he was. The chase only continued for 15 minutes and Blood Emperor had to stop. After all, Jian Wushuang was nowhere to be seen. The experts under his control also couldn't see Jian Wushuang anywhere. He escaped. Blood Emperor looked embarrassed and at the same time he was shocked. One must know that he was also good at speed. He took action personally, but Jian Wushuang had run way under his watch. Jian Wushuang's skill of escape was extraordinary. Blood Emperor stood in the void and waited for a while. He was waiting for the replies of the experts under his control. Very soon he came to a conclusion. Although the young man was very fast at running away, he should have yet to get out of Darkness Mountain. If I'm not mistaken, he must have found a place to hide. The place that he is hiding is definitely within a billion miles range of this region before me. Blood Emperor was clear that it was impossible for Jian Wushuang to run out from Darkness Mountain in such short period of time. Plus, the experts under his control didn't notice Jian Wushuang's existence. Hence, Jian Wushuang had definitely hidden. There was a flash of a chilly gleam in Blood Emperor's eyes. The next moment he gave a command to the experts under his control. Everyone gather at this region, search using consciousness within a 1 billion mile range. We must find Jian Wushuang. The experts under Blood Emperor's control immediately started to search within a 1 billion mile range. A billion-mile range was already extremely vast. One must know that there was a limitation of cultivators' consciousness coverage in Sky Sword Prison. A real god could only cover an expanse of 1,000 miles with his all. Relying on a real god's consciousness to search for a hidden expert within a billion-mile range was really difficult. Most importantly, within the 1 billion-mile range, the underground was not included. Taking the underground into account, the range became even wider. There was less than 100 of them if the experts under Blood Emperor's control were all added up. Even if everyone gathered to search through the 1 billion-mile range, the difficulty level of the search was still considered high. Chapter 1466, Living in Seclusion. Chapter 1466, Living in Seclusion. Within the 1 billion-mile range that the experts under Blood Emperor's control were searching through vigorously, in the extreme depths of the underground, there was a cave dwelling that had exploded forcefully by divine power. Jian Wushuang was in the cave dwelling. At that very moment, his face was pale and the aura on his body was weak. King of venomous worms, how long until my divine power has recovered to its peak? Jian Wushuang asked. The stronger your power, the more difficult it is to recover your divine power. Plus, your divine power wasn't expended in an ordinary massacre but burned by force while you were running away. When you arrived at this cave dwelling, your divine power was almost empty. Luckily, I was there to recover on behalf. You'll need at least 3 days to recover to your peak, King of Venomous Worms replied. With his divine power, which could be compared favorably with peak in the third heaven, under the situation where it was burned entirely, it was already considered an unbelievable recovery rate for him to recover in just 3 days. It was all because of King of Venomous Worms. If Jian Wushuang were to rely on his own recovery power, it would definitely require much longer time. 3 days. Jian Wushuang nodded in silence as his face grew grave. What's going on with Blood Emperor? I told him I have no Tian Sha gem. I said I have none and he wanted to kill me? Could it be that he was definite that I have a Tian Sha gem? But I don't even know what Tian Sha gems are. Jian Wushuang muttered. It was because you didn't know about Tian Sha gems. That's why Blood Emperor wanted to kill you, King of Venomous Worms said. Why? Jian Wushuang was confused. Jian Wushuang, if I'm not mistaken, Blood Emperor should be someone from Holocaust Sect. King of Venomous Worms said. Holocaust Sect? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Holocaust Sect was one of the most vicious sects in Eternal Chaotic World. They were brutal and merciless. In order to enhance their power, they would even massacre countless living things. Such a sect was hated by every force in Eternal Chaotic World. They were the public enemy of all cultivators. Back in Greenfire World, Jian Wushuang came across an expert from Holocaust Sect, Dao Yuanzi, and he witnessed the vicious measure of one from Holocaust Sect. In the end, Dao Yuanzi died in his hand and his blood-killing plate armor was from Dao Yuanzi. An expert from Holocaust Sect wants to kill me? Would it be because of blood-killing plate armor? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. Should be, King of Venomous Worms nodded. Blood-killing plate armor is a treasure made by Holocaust Sect with a vicious method, and experts from Holocaust Sect should have some sensory ability towards treasure like this. Plus, the closer the distance, the stronger the senses. Previously, when you were wandering around the other places in Sky Sword Prison, Blood Emperor couldn't sense the existence of blood-killing plate armor as the distance was far. But when you came to Darkness Mountains, the distance became closer and he could sense the aura of blood-killing plate armor. Hence he aimed for you. However, although he could sense the existence of blood-killing plate armor, he wouldn't be able to gauge if you were from Holocaust Sect. After all, people from Holocaust Sect must be extremely careful when they wander around Eternal Chaotic World. They would hide the aura of the secret skill of Holocaust Sect that they cultivated entirely. Under a situation where they do not expose the aura actively, no one would know that he was an expert from Holocaust Sect. Hence, he was nice to you at the very beginning. King of Venomous Worms paused and continued, as for the reason why he asked for a Tian Sha gem from you, he was probing you. Tiansha gem was a treasure that Holocaust sect refined forcibly using a unique method. It is extremely precious. Many experts in Eternal Chaotic World never heard of it. However, an expert from the Holocaust sect would definitely know about it. He used Tiansha gem to test you, but you don't know anything about it. Hence, he determined that you aren't from Holocaust sect. You obtained blood-killing plate armor by chance. Hence, he wanted to kill you and take away your blood-killing plate armor. Oh, I see. Jian Wushuang nodded in silence, but he found it confusing. Although my blood-killing plate armor is quite powerful, it is just a chaos unique treasure for universe god level. It has yet to reach the real god level. With Blood Emperor's power, he shouldn't be bothered by this kind of treasure. Hee, you got this wrong, King of Venomous Worms scoffed. Blood-killing plate armor is really just a chaos unique treasure for universe god level to you. However, it was different for experts from Holocaust sect. After all, blood-killing plate armor was a unique treasure to Holocaust sect, and ordinary experts in Holocaust sect aren't qualified to have it. Dao Yuanzi, the guy you killed back then, wasn't as powerful as Blood Emperor, but his background should be more impressive compared to Blood Emperor. He didn't get blood-killing plate armor, but Dao Yuanzi got it. To Blood Emperor, he couldn't use blood-killing plate armor of universe god level. But when he's out of here, he could figure out a way to enhance the level of blood-killing plate armor through massacres. Then, blood-killing plate armor would become blood-killing king armor. Blood-killing king armor is a treasure that many experts from Holocaust sect dream of. Blood-killing king armor? Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded. He knew that there was blood-killing armor below blood-killing plate armor, but he didn't know about blood-killing king armor. No wonder Blood Emperor wanted to kill me. He wanted to take my blood-killing plate armor, Jian Wushuang understood. Blood Emperor is from Holocaust sect. So, what if I expose his identity? Wouldn't he become the public enemy of cultivators in Sky Sword Prison? Jian Wushuang asked. He wouldn't. King of Venomous Worms smiled. If you were to expose his identity in the outside world, he would become a public enemy and be chased after by many experts. However, you're in Sky Sword Prison. In this prison, everyone is a prisoner. Under such conditions, every expert in Sky Sword Prison only wants to survive and shake off their identity as a prisoner one day. As for Blood Emperor being from Holocaust sect, they wouldn't be bothered. True, Jian Wushuang nodded as he agreed with King of Venomous Worms' assumption. Jian Wushuang, I'll pass on a set of hiding methods to you. Study them and master them as soon as possible, King of Venomous Worms suddenly said. Hiding methods? Jian Wushuang stunned. King of Venomous Worms explained, you're eyed by Blood Emperor and you're in big trouble. Although you're out of his sights for now, he definitely knew that you were hiding in this region. He definitely ordered the experts under his control to search for you in this region. If they find you, you'll be doomed. But if you master this method, it won't be that easy for them to find you. You might as well hide here and cultivate. Live in seclusion. Let Blood Emperor and his people continue their search. After some time, when they grow tired of it, you can find an opportunity to leave. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows when he heard that, and he understood. Chapter 1467 Heartless. Chapter 1467 Heartless. The experts under the control of Blood Emperor were searching for his whereabouts madly, and Jian Wushuang naturally could only opt to live in seclusion. Back when I was wandering around with King Luozhen, I learnt many methods. The hiding method that I'm going to teach you, although it isn't considered too high of a level in Eternal Chaotic World, should be sufficient for you, King of Venomous Worms said. After learning this method, even real God who probes using consciousness in the region wouldn't be able to feel your existence, let alone those ordinary real gods who briefly cover the range with simple consciousnesses. Jian Wushuang nodded and immediately started to cultivate the hiding method that King of Venomous Worms had provided him with. The level of the method wasn't high. Jian Wushuang would be able to master it very soon with his capability. Relying on the method, Jian Wushuang hid his aura entirely. Soon, Jian Wushuang realized that there was consciousness that swept past him. Someone's here and it should be a real god, Jian Wushuang said softly. There an aura in the coverage of his soul power. He was obviously a real god. However, the real god left straight away. As expected, even a real god can't find me, Jian Wushuang smiled and he felt at ease. Then, he took out the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation and started comprehending it and cultivating it in seclusion. The time flew past. In the outside world, the experts under the control of Blood Emperor, including Blood Emperor himself, continued to search through a 1 billion-mile range. They even searched deep down in the ground, not letting any corner go unsearched. In a total of a dozen years, the experts almost searched the 1 billion-mile range thoroughly. But they didn't find Jian Wushuang at all. Can't find him? Did he get out of this place? In the sky high above, Blood Emperor's face grew awkward, but he quickly shook his head. No, it is impossible for him to escape in such short period of time. He is definitely still within the 1 billion-mile range, but he definitely cultivated some sort of method that concealed his aura. Hence we can't find him. We are in trouble then. Blood Emperor was confident that Jian Wushuang was hidden in the 1 billion miles range and concealing his aura. If he couldn't even find him with consciousness probing, it would be almost hopeless for him to find Jian Wushuang. Unless Jian Wushuang revealed himself. As long as Jian Wushuang isn't stupid, he will definitely continue to live in seclusion. Until he reappears, the experts who are under my control won't stay guard in the 1 billion-mile range to monitor his whereabouts for me, Blood Emperor muttered to himself as he tried to figure out a plan. Then there's only one way to find the young man. There was a glimpse of light in Blood Emperor's eyes. Then he took out a communication token. 2 years later, when Jian Wushuang was within the 1 billion-mile range, Blood Emperor stood with his hands behind him on the peak of a tall mountain. He looked like he was waiting for something. Soon, in the void before him, a figure in white robe appeared gradually. It was a lady in white robe. The lady looked elegant and poised. She was smiling faintly and her body was enrobed with a warm aura. She gave people a holy and pure feeling. Blood Emperor, long time no see. The holy lady in the white robe walked slowly and appeared before Blood Emperor. She looked at Blood Emperor calmly. Blood Emperor was one of the 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison. All experts in Sky Sword Prison would revere Blood Emperor when they see him. However, the holy lady was rather calm before Blood Emperor. She didn't seem nervous or afraid but greeted him as though she were seeing an old friend. Heartless, Blood Emperor replied with a faint smile. He didn't behave haughtily with her either. Heartless king. One of the 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison, another expert that was alongside Blood Emperor. Also, the only real god in Sky Sword Prison who was good at consciousness attacks. I heard that Fiery King went to Mist Kings. Then he should be at your next. You invited me over today, is it to fight against Fiery King? The Holy Lady Heartless King asked. Fiery King? That madman. Blood Emperor's face grew grave. Fiery King was like Heartless King in himself, he was also one of the 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison. Theoretically, Fiery King was not on the same level as him. In actual fact, the other 3 kings in Sky Sword Prison were afraid of him. Plus, Fiery King would leave his territory every once in a while to challenge the other 3 kings. As he already looked for Mist King, his next target would be Blood Emperor. Humph, the madman can come as he wishes. It has been more than once or twice anyway, Blood Emperor sneered, then looked at Heartless King. I invited you over today not because of Fiery King but because of another matter. Oh? Tell me, Heartless King sounded gentle. Heartless, I shall not beat around the bush with you. 1,000 years ago, there was a newcomer in Sky Sword Prison named Jian Wushuang, Blood Emperor said. Jian Wushuang and I shared a great resentment. I have to kill him. You have great resentment with a newcomer? What kind of resentment? Heartless King asked. It's something from outside of the prison. It's inconvenient for me to tell you. Regardless, I have to kill Jian Wushuang, Blood Emperor was speaking in a deep voice. Previously, I realized the resentment between him and me. I wanted to kill him on the spot. However, the young man's defense power was rather strong. He made a narrow escape. Oh. Heartless King raised her eyebrows and said, to be able to run away from you, Blood Emperor, just how capable is this Jian Wushuang? The young man is really capable, but while he could run away from me, he will never run out of Darkness Mountain. I am definite that he is still hiding somewhere under my nose. Over the past few years, I commanded the experts under my control to search through the area, to probe every inch with consciousness. However, they still can't find him. I reckon he must have cultivated an impressive hiding method that can conceal his aura from an ordinary real god's consciousness probing. I looked for you. Blood Emperor explained. You want me to look for Jian Wushuang for you? Heartless King's pupil contracted. Yes, Blood Emperor nodded. Among all real gods in Sky Sword Prison, you're definitely on the top of the list in terms of consciousness. The ordinary real gods under my control couldn't find Jian Wushuang's existence, but you could definitely find him if you're willing to help with your attainment in consciousness. Chapter 1468 Expose. Chapter 1468 Expose. Blood Emperor knew clearly just how scared Heartless King was in terms of consciousness. Her consciousness, including her manipulation method of consciousness, wasn't something any ordinary real god could be compared to. That was also the reason he invited Heartless King over. Can you definitely find him? Hee Blood Emperor, you made it sound so easy. Heartless King shook her head and smiled, a range of 1 billion miles. If I were only to sweep the range with consciousness it'd be easy. However, Jian Wushuang is obviously good at hiding, so I have to rely on consciousness to probe inch by inch, and you also know that the coverage of consciousness is restrained in Skysword Prison. Even if it was me, I'd need more than half a month to probe inch by inch over 100,000-mile range. Now, you're asking about 1 billion miles. How long will it take? Sweeping the range with consciousness and probing inch by inch were totally different. If one were only sweeping the range with consciousness it'd be easy. If a real god wasn't restrained, their consciousness could easily sweep 100,000 miles. A range of 1 billion miles could be swept in a short time. However, probing inch by inch would require using consciousness to probe every corner within the search range. It would be much more difficult than sweeping the range with consciousness. Naturally, the time required would be much longer. The reason Jian Wushuang said that Heartless King's ability to search for experts was weaker than his was because Jian Wushuang lit up his soul power. He spread his soul power and he could cover each corner of the entire area. Anyone within the range of his soul power would reveal themselves. Although Heartless King's consciousness was strong, she couldn't do that. If some experts were to hide themselves, she had to spend a long time and great effort on probing inch by inch to find them. That was the reason why Heartless King couldn't fulfill the conditions to reach Skysword Prison after so many years. In the 1 billion mile range, probing inch by inch was actually very difficult for Heartless King. Blood Emperor, I'm afraid I won't be able to help, Heartless King said coldly. Blood Emperor creased his eyebrows slightly, then said, 2 evil soul pearls, how about that? Evil soul pearls? The Heartless King was surprised, but she immediately turned to look at Blood Emperor. Blood Emperor, you are really people from that force, huh? Regardless of where I'm from, we are now prisoners in Skysword Prison. Aren't we? Blood Emperor said. True, Heartless King nodded and smiled. 3 evil soul perks and I'll find Jian Wushuang for you. 3? Blood Emperor found it a pain. Evil Soul Pearl was Holocaust sect's exclusive treasure. It required extremely great effort and a high price to pay in order to refine one. Evil Soul Pearl was a great help for consciousness. Although Blood Emperor was an expert in Holocaust sect, he didn't have many Evil Soul Pearls. But then he had to take out 3 pearls at once. Although Evil Soul Pearl is precious, it is nothing compared to blood-killing plate armor. Blood Emperor squinted his eyes and then nodded. 3 Evil Soul Pearl deal. Then Blood Emperor passed a Qian ring to Heartless King. There's 1 Evil Soul Pearl here. The other 2 I'll give you after I kill Jian Wushuang. Sure, Heartless King smiled faintly and examined it. There was a boundless consciousness that spread out from Heartless King and covered every single corner within range. Heartless King had already started probing for Blood Emperor within a 1 billion mile range. However, even for Heartless King, it wasn't easy to find Jian Wushuang within the 1 billion mile range. Even if she didn't rest, it would require a long time. In the blink of an eye, it had been 70 years. In the void, Heartless King was still probing inch by inch with consciousness while Blood Emperor followed next to Heartless King. In this 100,000 mile range he isn't here. Let's head to the next area, Heartless King said. Then, Heartless King and Blood Emperor immediately came to the next void. For 70 years, we already searched through half of the 1 billion mile range. If Jian Wushuang were to really be within the 1 billion miles range, we will be able to find him very soon. Heartless King said and then spread her consciousness again. At that very moment, in the underground below Heartless King and Blood Emperor, in the depth of the cave dwelling, Jian Wushuang was seated quietly as he comprehended the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation. After so many years, I've comprehended the second painting thoroughly. Next up, the third painting, Jian Wushuang smiled. There was a total of 9 images in the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation. Based on Jian Wushuang's comprehension of reincarnation doctrine, he could only comprehend the first 3. He had already comprehended the first 2 among the 3. Jian Wushuang reckoned that if he were to comprehend the third one as well, his comprehension of reincarnation doctrine would be qualified to pass the first level of Doctrine Palace. By then he didn't have to be afraid of Blood Emperor either. The third is obviously more profound compared to the two previous ones, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. But suddenly, there was a boundless consciousness spreading across. Naturally, Jian Wushuang's cave dwelling was within range too. There's experts here to disturb me with consciousness again? It seems like Blood Emperor has yet to give up. Jian Wushuang smoked as he spread his soul power. He wanted to see which experts released consciousness. Just as he looked clearly with his soul power, Jian Wushuang's face grew grave. It's Blood Emperor. And the other person. The person was in a white robe looking extremely holy. On top of that, her consciousness was extremely shocking. Jian Wushuang immediately recognized the person. It's Heartless King. Blood Emperor invited Heartless King over. Jian Wushuang's face grew grave. The hiding method that King of Venomous Worms passed down to him had no problem if he were to use it to deal with an ordinary real god. Even if the real gods swept their consciousness across him, they would never notice his existence. However, it was Heartless King who came. She was a real god who was good at consciousness attacks. Among real gods in Skysword Prison, she was the strongest in terms of consciousness strength. Jian Wushuang wasn't confident in himself that his hiding method was still sufficient before Heartless King. I hope she doesn't notice me. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows tightly, trying his best to conceal his aura to his maximum. However, he also considered the worst situation and made plans for it. Heartless King was probing inch by inch with her consciousness. Very soon she found Jian Wushuang in the cave dwelling. Heartless King moved and locked her fierce consciousness power on Jian Wushuang. Found him, Heartless King revealed a smile. However, in the cave dwelling in the depths of the underground, Jian Wushuang's face instantly changed. She found me. Hurry up and run. Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang, who made a plan for the worst conditions, instantly started running away. Chapter 1469, Consciousness Prison. Chapter 1469, Consciousness Prison. Can I escape? Heartless King smirked coldly in the sky high above as she spread a boundless consciousness. The entire universe grew dark. Swoosh. Jian Wushuang plunged out of the underground and looked at a black wall blockage formed entirely with consciousness that had appeared before him. His face grew grave. Break? Wow. There was a sharp glimpse of sword light. Jian Wushuang erupted his divine power to his limit and performed the real god unique skill that he had invented, Crimson Light. Although the sword light made a huge crack on the black wall blockage, it didn't slash the black wall blockage apart. The crack immediately recovered too. What? Jian Wushuang looked to be in a fix. Swoosh. Swoosh. The two figures suddenly appeared in the black space. They were Heartless King and Blood Emperor. Blood Emperor, according to our deal, I found Jian Wushuang for you and locked him up in this consciousness prison. As for if you can kill him, it depends on yourself, Heartless King smiled faintly. This is the remaining 2 evil soul pearls. Blood Emperor threw a Chen Kuan ring to Heartless King as he moved towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, you made it so troublesome for me to find you. Blood Emperor looked at Jian Wushuang coldly and his eyes filled with a surging murderous intention. We are in big trouble. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows tightly as he looked around. This should be one of the measures that made Heartless King famous, Consciousness Prison. It is said that in the Consciousness Prison, even a real god on the top of the 2nd level can barely escape. However, just because real god on the top of the 2nd level couldn't escape, doesn't mean that I can't. Jian Wushuang thought to himself quietly. He swept out his soul power wantonly and covered the consciousness prison surrounding him. The consciousness prison is really sturdy, but there's weak point. The weak point is there. Jian Wushuang locked towards the direction. He could feel that the consciousness wall blockage from that direction was obviously much weaker than the others. With my ability, if I were to perform all my techniques, maybe I could explode the weak point. Then I'd have a chance to escape. Jian Wushuang thought and already made up his mind. Blood Emperor had already taken action. There was a flash of murderous intention in his eyes. Rumble. A fierce aura soared and his body immediately grew 3 meters high and was covered in crimson red, as though he were a living blood person. Jian Wushuang die. A loud shrill and the statue of the 3-meter-tall blood person suddenly appeared before Jian Wushuang. Wow. Blood Emperor only briefly lifted his hand and immediately, there was a blade shadow that crystallized in the void, covered in crimson light. The blade shadows that overlapped one another contained boundless power. Suddenly they slashed at Jian Wushuang with anger. Hong. It was as though the entire universe was slashed in half. Such strong power. Jian Wushuang was frightened and his soul power instantly flowed out. Roar. A deafening roar was suddenly heard and there was golden light that erupted from Jian Wushuang's body and formed a huge golden divine ape. The divine ape was wielding a sword as it swept out fiercely with a boundless, unyielding manner. Oh! Heartless King, who had already moved to the border of consciousness prison, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Jian Wushuang is also good at consciousness attacks. He seems to be quite good at it too. Bang! There was a loud thud and the entire universe shook madly. However, the consciousness prison was still as sturdy as a rock. The huge divine ape became a golden, flowing light and flew out. It landed on the consciousness wall blockage behind and shook from the hit. Then the golden divine ape took another huge stride forward. After taking a hit of mine, not only did you not die, but your aura didn't even weaken. Jian Wushuang, your power is not too shabby. The blood person that Blood Emperor had transformed into fixed its gaze on Jian Wushuang with its bloodshot eyes. Hee, if Blood Emperor were to let out your fighting power of a true real god, it would be easy peasy to kill me. However, it won't be that easy now. Jian Wushuang sounded extremely arrogant. Although he was only a universe god, his divine body could be compared favorably with a real god's. On top of that, with blood-killing plate armor, even though Blood Emperor's abilities were much stronger than his, it wouldn't be that easy to really kill him. I'd like to see just how long you can endure for. Blood Emperor launched another attack, but he intended to fight Jian Wushuang in close combat. Wow, wow, wow. Blood Emperor was like a crimson ghost that constantly appeared around Jian Wushuang. A fierce, ferocious hit was launched one after another at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang cast 3 shadows simultaneously and gave full play to flowing light phantom technique. At the same time, he erupted the close combat power that he had trained for the past 1,000 years in Skysword Prison entirely. Bang, 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 bang. Every ferocious hit and collision made a vigorous roar. After 1,300 years of training, Jian Wushuang's close combat skill was definitely much stronger than before. However, compared to Blood Emperor, who became an overlord in Skysword Prison long ago, he was still a notch lower. Most importantly, Blood Emperor's comprehension of Heaven Way was sufficient to pass through the first level of Doctrine Palace. In terms of unique skill, he was also much stronger than Jian Wushuang. That also led to the one-sided situation in the battle. Jian Wushuang was suppressed by Blood Emperor entirely. Luckily, his defense power was extremely strong. After he took a few hits from Blood Emperor, although he was wounded, it wasn't to the state where he would die. Humph, if you were to be outside Skysword Prison, you'd be dead long ago. Blood Emperor's gaze grew cold and continuously damaged Jian Wushuang. Although Jian Wushuang tried his best to fight back, his condition went from bad to worse due to the difference in their power. During the vigorous fight, Jian Wushuang intentionally moved towards the weakest point of the consciousness prison. Soon, very soon. There was hope in Jian Wushuang's eyes. He knew clearly that he was merely fighting a losing battle desperately, like a cornered wild beast, as he continued to fight against Blood Emperor. His real intention was there, but his goal was to aim at the weakest point of consciousness prison. Just as Jian Wushuang and Blood Emperor were fighting against each other in the consciousness prison, in a place near to consciousness prison. Swoosh! A figure that was showered in flames appeared in the void. He had just appeared and he could sense the boundless consciousness power nearby. Why would Heartless consciousness prison be here? The brawny man with fiery red hair creased his eyebrows and instantly plunged in the direction of the consciousness prison was at. Very quickly he arrived before the consciousness prison. Then he overlooked the huge consciousness prison before him. Chapter 1470, This Technique. Chapter 1470, This Technique. Heartless and Blood Emperor. The brawny man engulfed in flames smiled. Even with the hindrance of consciousness prison, the brawny man could still see the happening within clearly. He naturally also saw the scene of Blood Emperor fighting against Jian Wushuang. This universe god should be Jian Wushuang, who came to Skysword Prison not too long ago. To be able to struggle for so long in Blood Emperor's hand, his power is not too shabby. However, it ends here. The brawny man smiled faintly as he watched. He couldn't be bothered, nor did he plan to get involved. In consciousness prison. Very soon. I'll be there very soon. Jian Wushuang's eyes were red with a tinge of madness. However, in actual fact he was absolutely calm and cool-headed. He had been moving towards the weakest point of the consciousness prison the whole time. He finally arrived at the weakest point of the consciousness prison, but his divine body was heavily injured. This is it. There was a glimpse of light in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Hong. A vast, blazing quicksand exploded directly. The blazing quicksand region moved towards Blood Emperor under Jian Wushuang's manipulation. Although it seemed to only have constrained Blood Emperor slightly, it at least affected his speed. At the same time, there was an enormous amount of crimson flame that flowed from Jian Wushuang's body. The crimson flame formed a huge crimson sea of fire directly. Jian Wushuang was standing right at the core of the sea of fire, as though he were the king of the crimson sea. The power of Star Palace in his body instantly flowed out too. The secret skills of Scarlet Kingdom and Star Palace were performed simultaneously. Break. Jian Wushuang's expression looked extremely crazy as the golden divine ape that covered the surface of his body let out a roar. The sword in its hand was revealing boundless power as well. Wow. A terrifying sword light swept out. The sword light wasn't a slash against Blood Emperor, but at the consciousness wall behind Jian Wushuang. It was a single venture that Jian Wushuang risked everything on, and he performed a variety of his trump cards at once. If the hit were to collapse the consciousness wall, he would stand a chance to escape. Hong. A vigorous noise and the originally sturdy consciousness prison suddenly shook madly and teetered from the attack. In the very next moment, on the consciousness wall that Jian Wushuang hit, a crack appeared and had an opening. Although the opening wasn't too big, it was big enough for Jian Wushuang to run out of. What? He knew the weakest point of my consciousness prison. Heartless King, who had retreated to the border of the consciousness prison, was surprised. Compared to Jian Wushuang being able to cause an opening in consciousness prison, she was even more shocked by the earlier technique that Jian Wushuang had suddenly performed. Especially, that one technique. This technique? Heartless King was shocked. Even Blood Emperor was stunned on the spot. Blood Emperor, you never said that Jian Wushuang knew this technique before. Heartless King straightaway roared. I never knew he knew that technique too. Blood Emperor bellowed, but he looked extremely distressed. At this point we can't think too much. Kill. Swoosh. Blood Emperor was fueled by murderous intention. He locked his gaze on Jian Wushuang and plunged to chase after him. However, Jian Wushuang, who caused an opening in consciousness prison, already appeared outside of consciousness prison after he had exited from the opening. I'm out. There was joy shimmering in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Without the hindrance of consciousness prison, it would be much easier if he wanted to escape in the open space. Jian Wushuang instantly performed the secret skill of dragon blood and the divine power in his body started burning in madness. At the same time he swept out his soul power. Just as Jian Wushuang performed the secret skill of dragon blood and was prepared to make a run. What? Jian Wushuang's face suddenly changed. Within his sensory range of soul power, he noticed an extremely hot aura which was traveling at terrifying speed. The aura appeared in the void right before him. This is... Jian Wushuang lifted his head and saw a cloud of boundless flames sweeping over. The flame was like a cloud of fire that descended from heaven. The cloud of fire landed before Jian Wushuang. Rumble. The boundless flames swept forward crazily in an imposing manner, like breaking dead wood. The surrounding 10,000-mile range was burned by the blazing flame to the point where not even a blade of grass would grow. The terrifying power frightened Jian Wushuang, while Blood Emperor and Heartless King, who were chasing after Jian Wushuang, immediately hauled their steps. The boundless flame slowed down and finally left a small flame burning. Inside the small flame, a brawny figure gradually revealed itself. He had fiery red hair, fiery red eyebrows, and even his beard had a flame-like redness. His body was built and his skin was tan. He was filled with an air of masculinity. However, the brawny man engulfed in the flame was covered in unprecedented rage and his gaze was furious too. Looking at the visitor, Blood Emperor and Heartless King grew grave. Jian Wushuang stopped in the void afar too. He was shocked to see the sight. Such a terrifying aura. The aura was so savage and so much stronger compared to Blood Emperor and Heartless King. This is Fiery King. Jian Wushuang immediately understood the visitor's identity. In Sky Sword Prison, the four kings were publicly recognized as the four most powerful experts. However, among the four experts there were differences in their power too. Among them, Fiery King was known publicly and recognized as the strongest. He was stronger than Blood Emperor, Heartless King and also Mist King. The legend said that Fiery King would visit the other three kings every once in a while to fight against them. Every time they fought, although he couldn't kill the other three kings, he could torture the other three kings. Hence the reason why he was recognized as the #1 overlord in Sky Sword Prison. The other three kings were afraid of Fiery King to a certain extent. Then Fiery King appeared before Jian Wushuang. Impressive. 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison and there are 3 here. Plus, Fiery King took the initiative to block Blood Emperor and Heartless King for me? Jian Wushuang's expression grew strange. The brawny man showering in flame, Fiery King, was in boundless anger as he stared at Blood Emperor and Heartless King before him. Blood Emperor, Heartless, the two of you, how dare you do anything to my underling? You have guts. A loud roar was heard from Fiery King. His deafening voice shook the surrounding void as though they were shivering in fear. Hearing that, Blood Emperor and Heartless King grew pale while Jian Wushuang looked surprised. Chapter 1471 Fiery King. Chapter 1471, Fiery King. My man. Fiery King said that I'm his man? Jian Wushuang was caught by surprise. He had not been in Sky Sword Prison for long. He had not came across Fiery King before, nor had he been an appendage to Fiery King. But then, Fiery King said that he was his man. More interestingly, from Blood Emperor and Heartless King's expressions, they seemed to know that he was Fiery King's man. What was going on? Fiery King. Heartless King looked at Fiery King. I am invited by Blood Emperor. He gave me benefits while I only looked for Jian Wushuang on his behalf. Before this, I never knew that he was your man. I had no idea either, Blood Emperor said. I don't care if you knew or not. In short, you already took action against him. Fiery King was raging with anger. He was really angry at that moment. When he came to the void nearby and saw Blood Emperor and Heartless King were fighting against Jian Wushuang, he didn't bother, nor did he intend to get involved. After all, a massacre in Sky Sword Prison was originally crazy. Jian Wushuang wasn't related to him at all, so his death had nothing to do with him. However, at the crucial moment, Jian Wushuang performed various trump cards and caused an opening in the consciousness prison. Among the trump cards that Jian Wushuang performed, it included the technique from Scarlet Kingdom. The moment he saw Jian Wushuang perform the secret skill of Scarlet Kingdom, Fiery King couldn't just sit and watch. As you already took action against my man, you have to pay the price for what you have done. A cold voice was heard from Fiery King's mouth. The next moment, Fiery King immediately launched an attack. Rumble. Fiery King's figure expanded instantly and suddenly became a giant that was 100 zhang tall and covered in flame. It was a flaming giant. Wow. The flaming giant stepped hard and kicked in the direction of Blood Emperor and Heartless King. On the way, a churning crimson flame swept out mightily. It suddenly covered the surrounding void in an instant. In the 10,000-mile range, it became a crimson sea. The flaming giant that Fiery King became was the only ruler of the Crimson Sea. Looking at the sight, Jian Wushuang's eyes stared with his eyes wide opened. This is Scarlet Kingdom. Scarlet Kingdom. Yes, Fiery King was performing Scarlet Kingdom's technique then. The difference compared to Jian Wushuang's was that the Scarlet Kingdom technique that Fiery King performed was at a peak level. It could cover a total expanse of 10,000 miles. As for Jian Wushuang, even if he performed Scarlet Kingdom with all his power, the coverage wouldn't be more than 10 miles. Scarlet Kingdom was a precious secret skill of Lineage of Scarlet. Fiery King is an expert from Lineage of Scarlet. Jian Wushuang was surprised. He finally found out why Fiery King said that he was his man. It turned out that the two of them belonged to Lineage of Scarlet. Rumble. A terrifying rumble sounded across the battlefield. Even if Blood Emperor and Heartless King, who were swallowed by the Crimson Sea of Fire, were to work together, they would still be in a fix from the ferocious attack of the flaming giant that Fiery King transformed into. In a short while, they were trembling in the balance and were dispirited. Consider this a lesson that I teach you. There's a next time. Fiery King's loud voice was heard across the universe and the crimson sea of fire that covered the surroundings slowly stopped spreading. In the sea of fire, Blood Emperor and Heartless King glared at Fiery King in anger. Let's go. The two of them turned and left immediately without hesitation. The universe quickly calmed down. The flame on Fiery King slowly dispersed and he returned to his original look of a brawny man. He suddenly plunged forward and appeared before Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, Fiery King looked excited when he looked at Jian Wushuang. Thank you, Mr. Fiery King, for lending a helping hand, Jian Wushuang quickly thanked him. Haha, you are from lineage of Scarlet, a junior to me. Of course I have to save you. Plus, even if I don't, you should be able to escape, right? Fiery King laughed. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrow but did not deny it. True. He had already freed himself from Heartless King's consciousness prison, and he had already performed the secret skill of dragon blood. Even if Fiery King didn't appear, he would be able to run away too. Let's go. Find a place and let's have a chat, Fiery King smiled. Very soon, the two of them found a remote cave dwelling in Darkness Mountain. In the cave dwelling, Jian Wushuang and Fiery King sat opposite one another. Jian Wushuang, where did you cultivate the secret skill from Scarlet Kingdom? Fiery King asked. At Snow Kingdom in Dayu World on Scarlet Island, Jian Wushuang briefly explained the process of him cultivating Scarlet Kingdom. After he heard Jian Wushuang's description, Fiery King nodded his head and revealed a gratified expression. Luckily, although lineage of Scarlet is on the decline, it has never once been destroyed. Mr. Fiery King, would you be the creator of lineage of Scarlet? Jian Wushuang asked. Back when he was on Scarlet Island, the master of Scarlet Island once told him the history of lineage of Scarlet. He said that lineage of Scarlet was created by a top-notch expert above universe god. Lineage of Scarlet was once brilliant but it was in decline later on. Creator? I guess so, Fiery King nodded faintly. As expected, Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Then, Fiery King started telling him the story. Many years ago, I created lineage of Scarlet in the kingdom, and the kingdom was one of the 72 kingdoms that Sky Sword Mountain controlled. Then, because there was a real god, me, who took charge, lineage of Scarlet was considered a great force in the Holy Kingdom. There was almost no one who dared to provoke us, but then, because of an accident, I offended Sky Sword Mountain, and it could be said that I offended Sky Sword Mountain greatly. Then I understood that lineage of Scarlet was in danger. Hence, I made a prompt decision and ordered the experts of lineage of Scarlet to immediately leave the Holy Kingdom while I also opted to run away. However, Sky Sword Mountain was too powerful. In the end, I was arrested by experts from Sky Sword Mountain and imprisoned here in Sky Sword Prison. Fortunately, lineage of Scarlet escaped. Fiery King smiled. Jian Wushuang sighed. The 72 holy kingdoms that Sky Sword Mountain controlled and the distance to Snow Kingdom was very far. Scarlet Kingdom ran away from the 72 holy kingdoms into Snow Kingdom and steadied its foundation in an ordinary world in Snow Kingdom. They really ran very far away. I thought I'd forever be imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison and never meet any junior of lineage of Scarlet. I never thought that I'd be able to meet you today. Fiery King looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile on his face. Chapter 1472 Hopeless. Chapter 1472, Hopeless. To be able to see a junior from the lineage of Scarlet in my remaining years and know that lineage of Scarlet still exists in eternal chaotic world, I, Fiery King, can die with no regrets. Fiery King smiled and said. Jian Wushuang could understand Fiery King's feelings. Over the years, he had been imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison and he was cut off from the outside world. He wasn't sure how lineage of Scarlet was doing and whether if it was destroyed. He had been worried. Then when he finally met Jian Wushuang, he found out that lineage of Scarlet still existed and had already steadied their foundation in Snow Kingdom. Fiery King could finally feel at ease. Mr. Fiery King, don't worry. With your ability, there will definitely be a day when you can leave Sky Sword Prison, Jian Wushuang said. Leave? Fiery King shook his head slowly. It isn't that easy to leave Sky Sword Prison. I'm afraid there won't be a day where I leave here. Why? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. From Jian Wushuang's point of view, Fiery King was widely recognized as the top expert. Even the other three kings had to bow down before him. Such an expert, if he were to carry out a major massacre, should be able to kill many experts. Through accumulation over the years, it would just be a matter of time until he fulfilled the criteria to leave the prison. Jian Wushuang, you're only a universe god. To a universe god, as long as you kill 100 of universe god of the same level or 10 real gods, you can leave. However, for a real god, the criteria is different. Fiery King smiled faintly as he explained. A real god who wants to leave Sky Sword Prison has to kill 1,000 experts, and they must not take their levels into consideration. In other words, even if you kill real gods of the same level, it will be counted as one. You know, everyone's defense power in Sky Sword Prison is very high, they aren't that easy to kill. Plus, there are not many experts in Sky Sword Prison. It is too difficult for a real god to kill 1,000 experts in the prison. It's really difficult, but there's a string of hope, Jian Wushuang said. Yes, there's a string of hope. The hope is to accumulate over the years. Even if I only kill one expert every 10,000 years, I'd be able to fulfill the criteria in 10 million years. However, the mentioned criteria was for ordinary real god, but I am one of the 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison. As kings, our criteria to leave is even tougher, Fiery King said. Tougher? Could it be that they ask you to kill 10,000 experts? Jian Wushuang asked. 10,000? No, as kings we have to kill 1,000, but the 1,000 that we kill have to be real gods. Fiery King said. What? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Kill real gods. Kill 1,000 real gods, then he could leave Sky Sword Prison. How could real gods be killed so easily? Plus, comparing real gods to universe gods, the numbers were much less. Since the birth of Sky Sword Prison, including all real gods that had died and left, he reckoned there weren't more than 300 of them. There weren't even more than 300 real gods who had been imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison. How could the 4 kings kill 1,000 real gods? Jian Wushuang, now you know why I felt hopeless about leaving Sky Sword Prison? Fiery King smiled faintly, but Jian Wushuang saw the smile and found it extremely sad. Jian Wushuang grew distressed. At the same time, he pitied Fiery King and the other 3 kings. The 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison looked so enchanting and were treated as overlords in Sky Sword Prison. But, in actual fact, the 4 kings were much sadder than any other experts in Sky Sword Prison. After all, although it was dangerous for the other experts to stay in Sky Sword Prison and the probability of them falling wasn't low, they stood a chance to leave Sky Sword Prison after all. However, the 4 kings seemed to not stand a chance at all. To kill 1,000 real gods. Even Jian Wushuang himself reckoned that it would be hopeless. Of course, if we 4 kings want to leave Sky Sword Prison, there is another possibility, Fiery King said. How? Jian Wushuang turned to look at Fiery King. Break through and become the 2nd stage of real god. Fiery God explained, the stage is second to Almighty. It is far stronger than ordinary 1st stage real god. Experts at that stage, even Sky Sword Prison can't imprison them. Hence, the owner of Sky Sword Mountain once said that if we were to break through to that stage we could leave as well. It's a pity that it isn't that easy to break through to that stage. Eternal chaotic world, there are so many real god experts. But just how many of them could really take that leap? At least from what I know, I am hopeless in this life. Not only myself, but the other 3 kings don't have any hope either. Jian Wushuang's face grew grave as he nodded in agreement. Alright, forget about that. Let's talk about you. Fiery King looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, why are you imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison? Why are you chased after by Blood Emperor and Heartless King? This? Jian Wushuang thought for a while and briefly told Fiery King the story. Oh, lineage of Star? You are a disciple of Star Palace? Fiery King looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. He had once wandered in 10 cultivation sanctuaries alone. He had heard of lineage of Star and disciple of Star Palace before. Haha, your higher up in lineage of Star is quite interesting. He sent you to murder in Sky Sword Mountain. It was obviously to provoke the owner of Sky Sword Mountain, Fiery King laughed. No one denied it, Jian Wushuang pouted, then briefly explained why Blood Emperor was after him. Holocaust sect. You mean Blood Emperor is Holocaust sect's man? Fiery King's gaze turned cold as he stood up. I am only guessing, but it should be that, Jian Wushuang answered. He believed in King of Venomous Worm's judgment. Plus, from his viewpoint, that was the only reason for Blood Emperor to come after him. Humph, the bastard from Holocaust sect. Fiery King's voice was cold. Previously, when I was wandering in eternal chaotic world, I once saw Holocaust sect's doings. Their vicious formation refined all living things in 21 worlds in less than 1,000 years. Back then, in the Holy Kingdom, it stirred up a great commotion and even got the owner of Sky Sword Mountain involved. It is said that the owner of Sky Sword Prison personally investigated the case. However, the people from Holocaust sect ran away too quickly and didn't fall in the hands of the owner of Sky Sword Mountain. I never thought that the Sky Sword Mountain that we are currently in had people from Holocaust sect too, and that he would be one of the 4 kings. Chapter 1473 3000 years. Chapter 1473, 3000 years. Holocaust sect, in eternal chaotic world, was hated by everyone. Especially by Fiery King, who once watched the merciless act of Holocaust sect with his own eyes, and loathed them even more. It's a pity that it isn't eternal chaotic world, but Sky Sword Prison. Even if we find out about Blood Emperor's true identity, we can't do anything about him, Fiery King continued. The experts in Sky Sword Prison are all prisoners. They have trouble even keeping themselves alive. Who would be bothered if Blood Emperor was one of the experts from Holocaust sect? As for myself, even if I intend to take action against Blood Emperor, under the limitation of divine power, I can only suppress him and torture him. But it's impossible for me to kill him. Fiery King was publicly acknowledged as the #1 expert in Sky Sword Prison. Even if it was him, under the condition where his divine power was limited, he couldn't kill a king. Jian Wushuang, if Blood Emperor is really after you because of your blood-killing plate armor, you have to be careful. Fiery King looked at Jian Wushuang and exhorted. Blood-killing plate armor, to us ordinary universe gods, isn't very useful. However, to Blood Emperor who is from Holocaust sect, it is very useful. If he were to get blood-killing plate armor, he could figure out a way to enhance the power of blood-killing plate armor over the years. He could level up blood-killing plate armor into blood-killing king armor. Once he obtains blood-killing king armor, I dare say that his fighting power should be able to reach the 2nd stage of real god. By then he could leave Sky Sword Prison. And this should be his only chance to leave Sky Sword Prison. He definitely won't let the chance slip. Hence, even if I just taught him a lesson earlier and warned him, he will definitely not hesitate to take action against you if he has a chance. I understand, Jian Wushuang nodded. He also knew that blood-killing plate armor was useful to Blood Emperor. Before blood-killing plate armor, Blood Emperor definitely wouldn't be bothered by Fiery King's threat. After all, although Fiery King was strong, he couldn't kill him. At first, I intended to train myself at Blood Emperor's Darkness Mountain for a while. Then, when my Flowing Light Phantom reaches the 2nd level, I will start my massacre plan. However, it seems like my plan has to be delayed. Jian Wushuang's face grew solemn. Blood Emperor had his eyes on Jian Wushuang. If he were to continue training in Sky Sword Prison or launch a massacre plan, Blood Emperor might find him again. Then he wasn't sure if he could keep himself alive in a fight against Blood Emperor. Jian Wushuang, if you want to train, why not just return to Fiery Prison with me? Fiery King said. Fiery Prison? Jian Wushuang was surprised. We, the 4 kings, each have our territories in Sky Sword Prison. Blood Emperor's territory is here in Darkness Mountain, while mine is in Fiery Prison. It is much bigger than Darkness Mountain and there are more experts there too. Plus, it is my territory. You can fight against anyone as training. Regardless of how much Blood Emperor is dying to get the blood-killing plate armor from you, he doesn't have the guts to barge into Fiery Prison to hunt you down. Plus, he can't hunt you down anyway, Fiery King suggested. Great idea, Jian Wushuang beamed with joy. What he lacked was training. There was still room for improvement in terms of his power. Once he improved his power, he would be confident enough to fight against Blood Emperor. By then, even if he were to wander in Blood Emperor's territory, Darkness Mountain, Blood Emperor could only sit and watch but couldn't do anything about him. If so, let's depart immediately. Jian Wushuang immediately departed to Fiery Prison with Fiery King. Fiery Prison was just like rolling hills, but most of the hills were made of volcanoes. At that very moment, among the scorching hot volcanoes, Jian Wushuang stood with his sword while there was a short elderly in red armor before him. The short elderly held a red hammer in each hand while he revealed a smile on his face. Jian Wushuang, did you offend Mr. Fiery King? Mr. Fiery King sent us a message that, if we were to ever come across you, we have to try our best to kill you. Oh. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and wasn't surprised. After all, it was a requirement that Fiery King had suggested. As he wanted to train himself in Fiery Prison, it naturally had to be a life-and-death challenge. If the experts in Fiery Prison were to hold back their power, the training wouldn't be as effective. Want to kill me? I shall see if you have the ability to, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Kill? The short elderly didn't bullshit anymore. There was a chilly gleam in his eyes as he charged forward. Honk, honk. The two red hammers pierced the air and slammed down toward Jian Wushuang with boundless power. Jian Wushuang immediately wielded his sword to block. From that day onwards, Jian Wushuang wandered in Fiery Prison alone and exchanged blows with many experts in Fiery Prison. There were more experts in Fiery Prison than in Darkness Mountain, especially experts on the second level. There were a total of 8 in Fiery Prison itself. The others were made up of many real gods and universe gods on the peak of the third level. These people were suitable for Jian Wushuang to train himself on. Plus, the experts didn't know Jian Wushuang's relationship with Fiery King. They even thought Jian Wushuang had offended Fiery King, which explained why Fiery King was so angry that he wanted him dead. Hence, the experts in Fiery Prison who came across Jian Wushuang tried their best to kill Jian Wushuang. But Jian Wushuang's defense power was extremely strong and he could barely deal with them. During his training, Jian Wushuang's power was increasing gradually. The years flew past. In the blink of an eye, it had been 3,000 years. For the past 3,000 years, Jian Wushuang had been fighting vigorously with all the experts in Fiery Prison. In addition to the 1,300 years that he had been in Sky Sword Prison, he had been imprisoned for 4,300 years. 4,300 years was an extremely long time to Jian Wushuang. In Fiery Prison, on the top of a huge volcano, on the border of the volcano crater, Jian Wushuang sat in silence, alone. He slowly opened his eyes and revealed a joyous expression. 3,000 years. I have been cultivating and comprehending in Fiery Prison for 3,000 years. I have finally comprehended the third image of the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly while he felt a despondent mood. He was a person of quick comprehension and he possessed high innate advantage in terms of comprehension towards reincarnation doctrine. He didn't use too much time to fully comprehend the first 2 images of the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation. However, he had used a total of 3,000 years to comprehend the third image and he had many related trainings in the past 3,000 years. Chapter 1474, Visiting Darkness Mountain Again. Chapter 1474, Visiting Darkness Mountain Again. Heaven Way is unfathomable. Furthermore, the deeper you dig into it, the more difficult it is to comprehend. Jian Wushuang, you are only a universe god after all, and you are only a universe god in the second heaven. To be able to comprehend the third image of the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation in 3,000 years is already very impressive. You must know that an ordinary real god might not even reach your level in 300,000 years or 30,000 years, let alone 3,000 years. King of Venomous Worm's voice rang in Jian Wushuang's head. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He knew that a universe god was different from a real god. Once he reached the level of a real god, it would be much easier to comprehend Heaven Way as compared to a universe god. A universe god who could comprehend a slight bit of power of Heaven Way was already considered a top genius. To a real god, comprehending power of Heaven Way was something common. Although it took me longer, I have reached this step regardless, Jian Wushuang smiled. The step was referring to passing through the first level of Doctrine Palace. Jian Wushuang, who had fully comprehended the third image of the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation, had possessed the power to pass through the first level of Doctrine Palace. In other words, his comprehension of power of Heaven Way alone wasn't any weaker than the 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison. In terms of divine power, they were on the same level as well due to the fact that real gods were restricted. Then, compared to the 4 kings, he reckoned their only difference was their created unique skills. Jian Wushuang was only a universe god in the second heaven after all. The highest limit that he could reach was to create a beginner real god unique skill. However, it was different for real god. The unique skills created by the 4 kings in Sky Sword Prison were much stronger. I am definitely weaker in terms of unique skill. However, I have many trump cards and techniques. On top of that, my divine body is strong. It should be sufficient to fight against Blood Emperor. So, I can begin my massacre plan very soon. There was light shimmering in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Over the years, he had been wandering in Fiery Prison for training and never once left because of the threatening existence of Blood Emperor. He never had the confidence to fight Blood Emperor, which led to a temporary hold on his massacre plan. However, it was different then. On that day Jian Wushuang had found Fiery King. You're ready to leave fiery prison? Where do you intend to go? To wander around and hunt down experts? Fiery King looked at Jian Wushuang. No, I do not intend to wander around. I plan to head over to Darkness Mountain directly. Jian Wushuang said. Darkness Mountain, Blood Emperor's enemy's nest? Fiery King's face grew solemn as he looked at Jian Wushuang. You seem to be confident in dealing with Blood Emperor? Yes, Jian Wushuang smiled. In Sky Sword Prison, there shouldn't be anyone who has the power to kill me. Not even Fiery King yourself, I'm afraid. Oh, so confident? Fiery King raised his eyebrows. If so, I will not say more. You already have my communication token. If you run into any trouble in Darkness Mountain, send me a message. All right, Jian Wushuang nodded. Then he immediately departed. Fiery King looked at Jian Wushuang's shadow and sighed with emotion. 3,000 years ago, when this boy fought Blood Emperor, it was difficult for him to stay alive by giving his all. But today, 3,000 years later, he is so confident that he can stay alive before Blood Emperor and even me. TSK, his speed of improvement is terrifyingly fast. My lineage of Scarlet has an impressive young man. I hope that this young man stands a chance to leave Sky Sword Prison. Sky Sword Prison, Darkness Mountain. It had been 3,000 years since Jian Wushuang last came to Darkness Mountain, which was Blood Emperor's territory. In the void above all rolling hills, Jian Wushuang in a crimson robe, carrying a sword behind him, was walking forward slowly. 3,000 years ago, Blood Emperor and the experts under his command drove me to a miserable corner. I hid in the cave dwelling underground for 100 years but didn't dare to pop up. In the end, he even asked Heartless King to look for me. If it wasn't for Fiery King's arrival, even if I could have escaped Blood Emperor and Heartless King's chase, I could only have found a place to hide again. The debt from 3,000 years ago, Jian Wushuang is coming to take revenge today. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold and his soul power spread across wantonly. In 2 days, Jian Wushuang's soul power detected an expert's existence. Universe God. Jian Wushuang towering in the void, and he could clearly feel an expert in a cave dwelling in a mountain afar with his soul power. The expert was just a universe god and he was only on the 3rd level. Although this universe god has good defense power, it's a piece of cake for me to kill him with my current power. However, he's only a universe god. Even if I killed him, it won't be of much help to me. Jian Wushuang shook his head and left. He was also only a universe god. The criteria for him to leave Sky Sword Prison was that he either kill 100 universe gods or kill 10 real gods. If it were like before, when Jian Wushuang had not had enough power, he could only figure out a way to kill 100 universe gods in order to bail himself out from Sky Sword Prison. But now he had absolute power and he was leaning towards the latter option. Killing 1 real god is equal to killing 10 universe gods. It is obviously a worthy choice. Jian Wushuang smiled and continued to search through Darkness Mountain. His soul power was a great advantage that he had. Taking advantage of his soul power, it was too easy for him to find those experts in Darkness Mountain. In a few days' time, Jian Wushuang had found a real god. Real god Yuan, on the 3rd level in Sky Sword Prison, a real god that has yet to grasp Heaven Way. Plus, he is an expert under Blood Emperor's command. 3,000 years ago, he was among the real gods who were searching for me within the 1 million miles range. Jian Wushuang smirked coldly and instantly plunged towards the marsh where real god Yuan was at. In the huge marshland that was up to 100 miles wide, real god Yuan had opened up a cave dwelling below the marshland. Over the years, real god Yuan had been staying there. It was a beautiful cave dwelling. It was spacious and there were various decorations. They were all brought in from outside the prison by real god Yuan himself. It was rather luxuriantly decorated. On an exquisite stone bed in the middle of the cave dwelling, real god Yuan was lying casually with wine and food by his side. All that was missing were a few beauties and maidservants serving him. If he had that too, no one would have been able to tell that he was a prisoner. Chapter 1475 Real God Yuan. Chapter 1475 Real God Yuan. Sigh, I should not have done anything to that royal disciple secretly for such a small benefit back then. Otherwise I, Yuan, would not have been locked up in this Sky Sword prison. Moreover, this imprisonment is for 8 million years. Real God Yuan sobbed as he lay down. Back then, he was considered a well-respected overlord in a region of the Holy Kingdom. However, due to a rash decision, he had been imprisoned in the Sky Sword prison for a total of 8 million years. Initially, real god Yuan had hope that he could accomplish the criterion of the Sky Sword prison to kill 1,000 universe gods and then leave the prison. However, he soon realized that meeting such criterion was merely a futile hope. Not to mention leaving after achieving the criterion, it was already very difficult for him to keep himself alive in the prison. After all, to some of the universe gods who stood at the top in the Sky Sword prison, it would be a lot easier to kill a real god like him than to kill 10 universe gods. As such, it was natural that some universe gods had their eyes on him, such as the 2 demonic universe gods who were of the 2nd level. Under conditions where his divine power was restricted, he was not the 2 demonic universe gods' opponent. Moreover, just keeping himself alive was difficult. As such, he chose to be under the command of the Blood Emperor. Although he lived his life under poor circumstances for 8 million years, at the very least he would still be able to keep himself alive. I don't even know when I, Yuan, will be able to leave this shitty place. Real god Yuan was swearing secretly. However, at that moment, boom. A wave of tyrannical divine power erupted abruptly and struck the swamp that he was in directly. In no time the whole swamp was lifted up. Furthermore, the impressive divine power also spread mercilessly to the cave that he was in. The cave that real god Yuan was in broke into pieces instantly and he plunged out immediately. Real god Yuan appeared at the higher end of the void. As he looked at the swamp that had been completely flattened, he became extremely furious. Jian Wushuang, is that you? Real god Yuan stared at the blood-rogue youth who was standing in front of him. Real god Yuan, I trust you have been well, Jian Wushuang giggled. How dare you? Even though you know that the Blood Emperor is looking everywhere to kill you, you still dare to come to the Darkness Mountain. Moreover, you also destroyed my cave. Do you really think that with the Fiery King as your supporter, no one in the Sky Sword prison will do anything against you? Real god Yuan shouted angrily. Haha, the Fiery King is indeed giving me support. However, I have come to the Darkness Mountain alone this time around. Since the Blood Emperor wishes to kill me so much, by all means bring it on, Jian Wushuang laughed. Very good, I shall send a message to the Blood Emperor now. Real god Yuan took out a token immediately. Jian Wushuang crossed his arms and stood at his position. He did not interfere and allowed real god Yuan to send the message. After a short while. Have you finished sending your message? Jian Wushuang's laughter could be heard. Real god Yuan stored his token. However, his eyes had already squinted slightly. This Jian Wushuang did not stop me even though he saw me sending a message to the Blood Emperor. Could it be that he isn't scared due to his strong backing? Real god Yuan, since you have finished sending your message, isn't it about time that you think about your own situation? Jian Wushuang chuckled. What? Could it be that you still wish to use us real gods as your whetstones just like before? Real god Yuan's voice sounded grave. Whetstone? No, my tough training is more or less over. Now I must think of a way to leave the Sky Sword prison. You should know the criterion to leave as well. As I am a universe god, I must either kill 100 universe gods or 10 real gods to leave. As for you, you are my first target, Jian Wushuang grinned. Kill me? By yourself? Real god Yuan sneered, what a joke. I'm a real god. In the Sky Sword prison, apart from the 4 kings who could kill me. Before this, when I first came to the Sky Sword prison, I also met a person known as Universe God Longxiu. He was more confident than you and claimed that in the whole Sky Sword prison, apart from the Heartless King, no one could kill him. However, he died later on and he was killed by me, Jian Wushuang said apathetically. You killed Universe God Longxiu? Real God Yuan's eyes narrowed. Universe God Longxiu's name was famous in the Sky Sword prison. Although he was only a universe god, his ability to keep himself alive was way greater than a real god like himself. However, he had died at the hands of Jian Wushuang. You shall join Universe God Longxiu as well. Jian Wushuang's eyes glowed with murderous intent. Buzz. Majestic sword essence rose at once. When the foot of Jian Wushuang, who was standing quietly in the void, originally moved, 9 shadows burst forth in a split second at the same time. The 9 shadows pierced through the void easily and appeared in front of real God Yuan. This is Universe God Longxiu's secret skill of martial art movement? Real God Yuan was shocked. However, what followed after that was a roar. Humph, no matter what, you are merely a universe god. Do you think that I will be afraid of you? Boom. Majestic divine power also burst forth from real God Huiyuan's body. All the hair on his body turned scarlet. His eyes turned stringent and his body became bigger. It was as though he had become a real fire ape. Moreover, he was holding a completely red stone rod. The stone rod was 3 meters long and it was as thick as a person's arm. When real God Huiyuan swung the stone rod, he unleashed an earth-shaking power instantly. Go to hell. Real God Huiyuan's face distorted. Under the condition of his divine power being restricted, he had already unleashed all his power, unique skills and secret skills to their maximum. All his power was converged into the stone rod alone. As for Jian Wushuang, who was in front of him, with a flash of the 9 shadows, figures appeared and wielded the Blood Mountain sword. Crimson light. Swish. It was so fast that it was as if a crimson-colored lightning had appeared in mid-air. It was so fast that it was ridiculous. The crimson-colored sword light and the boundless void. In the places which the sword light passed, a great amount of blood-colored sword light was left behind and did not dissipate even after a long time. In no time, the sword light collided head-on with real God Huiyuan's red stone rod. Both Jian Wushuang and real God Huiyuan had unleashed the unique skills of real gods. Moreover, the divine power that both of them had released were about equal. However, what was different was that the sword light that Jian Wushuang had executed contained the power of reincarnation. Moreover, it was different from 3,000 years ago. At present, his comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine had already achieved the standards of the Doctrine Palace's first level. Hence, when the power of reincarnation was used, its power was at least 10 times stronger than before. This was still in comparison to the past. As for real God Huiyuan, he had never possessed the slightest bit of the power of Heaven Wei. This collision. Puff. Real God Huiyuan coughed out a big mouthful of blood straight away. His blood covered his hair, causing his hair, which was already scarlet in color, to become even redder. The aura on real God Huiyuan's body also decreased by a huge amount immediately. He retreated in a pathetic state and it was only after quite a while that he managed to regain his posture. Die. As soon as Jian Wushuang's body moved, 9 shadows appeared. He did not give real God Huiyuan any time to catch his breath. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.